Good evening and welcome to the March 24th meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. We call this meeting to order. I am going to take the chairman's option, and I am going to make just a brief announcement before we get started. I'm not going to take any questions about this, and we'll talk about it further later on when it comes up. As some may or may not know, last week we had a situation in the select board meeting where there were, as it turns out, 5 CPC members who were present at that meeting, which is a violation of the open meeting law. I sit on 5 committees. I've had 2 committees a year for over 40 years. There is no reason whatsoever that I shouldn't have known that or shouldn't have seen that. What I plan on doing is I will send a letter to the Ethics Commission, and I will advise the incident that occurred, and because I was the ranking member and because of what happened, and I really didn't notice, I was the last one out because I'm slow, and I really didn't notice until then that there were truly 5 people of us there. So I'd like to apologize to the town administrator. I'd like to apologize to the select board. I'd like to apologize to the rest of this committee for that. I'm not going to take any other remarks right now.
Well, hold on, Jim.
No,
well, you're speaking on behalf of a committee.
No, I'm talking, this is just me. I'm just talking about me.
You're about to send a letter apologizing for the... Well, then that doesn't...
We'll talk more about this later on, okay?
First of all, you don't send it to ethics, because it's open meeting. That's Attorney General.
Okay.
So that's where you have to send it to. But it sounds to me that you're
ethics,
apologizing for this board.
No, I'm apologizing for myself because I should have known.
Known what?
I should.
We didn't break an open meeting law.
Okay. All right. No, we're not going to talk about it until later. We're not going to talk about it till. We're not going to talk about it till later. So please, enough for now. So the first item on the agenda. Now that I've got everybody...
Well, when's later?
No, the first item on the agenda is the report from the Affordable Housing Trust, and we welcome the lovely and talented Bruce Spinney, fresh from his, absolutely, fresh from the chicken pen. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Bruce Spinney, representing the trusts. Ed Frisbee is with me this evening. Every year, we come and present all the expenses we made from CPA funds that come over and fall into the authority of the trust to disperse, should there be any. This year, there actually are none. There was some confusion back and forth. I spent a considerable amount of time today with Mary and Chris just going over what the expenses were, where they came from, and then we went back through the meetings to see where they were voted on to be assigned to. As most of you probably know, but some may not, we have 2 accounts that we can pull funds from. One is from a settlement that came over a few years back, well, a lot of years back now, and the other is the CPA funds that come with the town meeting vote, the 10% reserves that come over. So,
excuse me, Bruce, just one quick thing of point of order, just to let you know. On the attendees list, we do have Eric Swenson and Matthew Otten, if you wanted to pull them in, since you do have a posted meeting.
Oh, we do. That's 4 of us, so I'm going to have him just call us to order, seeing that they're here.
All right, so we'll go ahead and continue.
Well, I got a roll call him in, Jim, if you really want me to go through.
No, he just raised it as a point of order. If you want them on, we can...
Just, if you could, just let me just let me know that Eric and who was the other one, this panelist?
Matthew Otten.
Matt. Could you guys just say that you're here?
They need to be brought into the meeting officially, which I think Joanne's doing right now.
Right.
It's on the screen there.
Oh, yeah, that, perfect. Well, if you could bring them in, I can continue, though, just so it won't take up too much more time. We have 2 separate accounts they pull from. One is not as encumbered as the other. So we did do some work, as you saw in the annual report, which we sent to you, for some concept and design work on 25 Worcester Street, and then there was one outlaying rental assistance program check. That check came after the sunset provision of what we had negotiated with CPA at the time, and it also fell past where the CARES Act was. That money would be coming out of the Pulte settlement accounts as well. It was one check to one landlord through the same system that we use. We just extended it from the trust perspective back then. So we added some more time on it and did another round that was beyond what we had discussed with everybody here. So we encumbered those funds out of our own account.
Matthew does not want to be brought in as an attendee.
Fine. I'm just going to acknowledge that he's there, and that's fine. I'll just keep going. You have the annual report in front of you. We do have a couple projects. We met with the select board a few weeks ago in kind of a dialogue to see how they could better support us in our mission. One of the things that was brought up, which I believe you guys are going to discuss, which was discussed a little bit last week, was taking a role on the CPC as a direct representative of the trust. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yes, we will.
But two of the big projects that the trust is undergoing now are really concerning development. One is a partnership with GSX for the Upton Street property, which we were able to negotiate a deal for us to partner with GSX to buy enough units, so to speak, in their development to bring that project to 25% affordability, which it's an apartment complex, would bring all the units under our SHI.
Bruce, I'm sorry. Just got a text from one of the people attending. They're having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, you need
So if
to
you could
speak
get
up a
closer to
little
the mic possibly, I don't know if that's the issue. Thank you.
I think the owl itself is the only thing picking up the speaking in the room.
Is that why it needs to be here, you think?
No, but we can move it back and it'll pick up Bruce a little bit better.
Evan and I had an argument about where the owl should be placed earlier.
And as usual, I'm still right.
We'll see. Did the owl pick that up?
I'm sure.
Put it in a tree. We don't need it.
Good. Try that.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and try again in my normal
Bruce, is that a
tone.
40B?
It is not.
It is not a 40B.
So a couple years ago, we went through the process of RFPing the old highway barn. We also dropped an overlay district there, which allowed a certain density by right. Town meeting voted on it. So it's actually a special permit process with the planning board. What's
So,
required,
sorry, the GSX is not the Pine Street that,
they are the same company.
the GSX, that's not a 40B.
That is not.
Okay, now you're on to the next one.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the board, if you would, let Bruce make his presentation, and then jot down your notes, and then we'll ask him questions after so he doesn't lose train of thought. All right, thank you.
Okay. The other project is, of course, 25 Worcester Street, which town meeting transferred a K of aid to the trusts. We were just awarded a grant from MHP, which is Mass Housing, to help us identify 55-plus options for the site, put us in touch with some of the other grants programs, and I believe they'll probably help us with a lot of the administrative and logistic functions. RFP, concept design, things of that nature. They have a fairly elaborate background in the state, and we were able to present what we had thought about and the restrictions that are currently under place at that site. So they awarded us a grant about 2 weeks ago, and we'll be meeting with them next Wednesday to flesh out the rest of how it's going to look and how we organize and how we handle 25 Worcester Street. So those are two projects that we have been working on in earnest for well over a year now. The trust has full membership now and also has good attendance and a lot of productivity after being silent for a lot of years. I believe we're taking good advantage of some of the economic opportunities that are out there and putting our funds to work on actual affordable units. But as we look past that and look at the town in safe harbor, which of course this project will bring us into with some security for many years to come, the trust is looking at other avenues to help the community and access affordable units. So just off the top of my head, some of the things that we could play a role in, which would be something that we would love to partner with the CPC on, is, as we look at the local initiatives and getting people from the community into these rental units or affordable units, providing the local option logistics. We can also provide some assistance for new couples getting into an apartment for the first time, which typically require first, last, and a deposit, things of that nature. we can provide subsidy programs for a lot of new families that are coming to town. We can also provide programs to help seniors in town stay in their rental units should they be in an actual affordable unit. So these are the type of things that we can, form a good partnership with the CPC, which is, one of the avenues we wanted to take for having representation on the CPC, like we do with the select board. So as we're moving forward, that was kind of, my understanding of it. Ed's with me tonight, and we have some in the audience too that could provide some input on what their thoughts behind that were as well. But
Okay, are you done?
sure.
All right. I just, I get to go first because I'm the chairman, all right? Just remember.
And
You don't,
push
it seems like you're not going to let anyone forget that.
How
so-
did that, how did that whole thing now with the rental payments, that's done, and is that a success or not a success, or what's your observation?
I think it was a success in the fact that it kept 8 residents in their apartments who are the rights.
Certainly
would have
successful for them.
gone. I mean, how you qualify a statement like that?
Yeah.
We had some confidentiality there. We used an independent agency to provide, the metric we use to qualify candidates. I think if we look at it in review, there was a lot of state and federal programs that were assisting, and we didn't allow them to also assist. So we couldn't, piggyback on some of the other ones that were already in place. And from a municipality's perspective, advertising into the community is very difficult. There's only a few ways to do it.
Yeah.
We don't really have a lot of print options. We don't really have a lot of, outside of using Code Red, which is probably not something we should be using that for. We did do a good job of, going to the assessor's office and going through the property records and finding people who owned large tracts of land and had apartments, as you go down like Providence Road. But some of those bigger companies were already tied in to some of the larger funding programs that the state was offering at the time. So as they had residents that were falling into trouble, typically they were moving them in that direction. And a lot of people didn't know that we were even providing that. And in most cases, the subsidy that was coming from state resources was far superior to what we were being able to provide. But that being said, it did have an impact on a lot of Grafton residents that were in trouble.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with that. There's no question.
But it is done. Now it's moved on to, I think we need to make sure that in the future, if we have another incident or another, downturn or something, that we need to provide this fallback for our citizenry, that we, spend some time and make sure we have staff on hand that can handle it. There was a very expensive component of it. And I think if we were to partner with MHP or some of the other state resources that now have a lot of experience doing it, we can kind of provide that from a town's perspective, just as efficiently and a lot cheaper. And then we can work on those avenues in which we can get into all the homes, so people know that it's something that they can call on the town should they run into an issue.
Okay, thank you. Brooke, did you have any questions?
I had a couple. So GSX is not a 40B, but you bought 25%.
We're in the negotiation for it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
25 Worcester Street, is that a 40B?
So it would be under the auspices of going through the zoning board to get the density that we need there. So it's R20, so it has a certain density that we can go through the planning board with that you wouldn't have a 40B. So
What, I mean, the developer brings the 40B, so like, is the developer coming, or you're gonna sell it you're gonna sell it out to someone saying this is gonna have increased density? for
no,
affordable?
we haven't made that decision yet. So there's 2 options that you can take.
I
for
thought there
Tony.
were some drawings and stuff that
Yeah, we
people-
did some concept work to provide people with some understanding of what the potential for the site could be. We took it from a very dense proposal, which would be similar to some of the other apartment complexes that are now in development in town. And we took it to the other end of the spectrum, which is what is allowable.
So how many do you think are gonna go there?
I can't really say.
We really don't know. We actually, in a lot of ways, need to get through GSX first, because the subsidy, the amount of money that we're putting towards GSX, sort of, it might tap us out a little bit for Worcester Street, if they get what they want out of us.
So how many units in GSX?
This should be 123.
On Pine Street?
No,
No,
that's
no, up in Street.
317.
Yeah, how many at Pine Street?
At Pine Street, there's 317.
Okay. All right, so that's 317. So you don't know about Worcester Street yet? So you're calling Upton Street the highway barn, so what's that number?
It's 123.
That's 123. And that's
That
the
hasn't gone through
developer's proposal?
architectural review.
Or what did
That-
the developer come with? What was their number?
Developer originally came with about 135.
And you went down to 123
Well, so the issue up there is primarily parking.
in wetland?
So, well, the wetlands was actually considered, it's the parking, they were gonna do some garage work. That was too expensive for the particular project and where it could go.
Is that one a lip?
No,
It's not a lip, okay.
no, which is part of the reason why it's so attractive to us, because we are in safe harbor now. So if we are in safe harbor now and we have a 2-year moratorium on LIP and 40B going through the ZBA, this actually goes through the planning board, which is a special permit process.
All right, you're getting to some of my questions, but I don't want to miss on these three before I ask about the safe harbor.
Fire away.
Pleasant Street is how many?
Pleasant Street?
Yeah.
That's,
Oh, let them
Isn't that,
answer.
didn't you say Pleasant Street there was a project?
Oh, you mean proposed projects?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pleasant Street with
So,
Eastland.
before I jump off of that, so these other three aren't proposed, you're saying these ones are done? You're going to go forward with them currently written?
Find the three. You now identified 3
GSX.
others.
That you, I'm calling GSX Pine Street,
Okay, we'll call it Pine Street.
25 Worcester Street and the Highway Barn.
At 25 Worcester Street, we're in a concept. We're nowhere near
Okay.
a place where we pull the trigger on it, so to speak.
So Highway Barn and GSX are the two that you're moving forward on? Okay.
Well, Pine Street's own thing. It's 40R. That's the select board. We really didn't have any part of that.
Okay. Well, you're paying them some money out of
No,
your...
no, entirely separate projects. They put a bid in on the highway
Thought
barn.
I don't want to get confused. All right, now I am confused.
Yeah.
GSX is Pine Street, the Highway Barn is the Highway Barn. So you're saying,
GSX put a bid on the highway barn, purchased the land from the town. They're the same
Yep,
company.
I understand that.
Two
but
entirely different
You're
projects.
mixing up the terms for me, but okay. All right, so you're saying you have nothing to do with the Highway Barn?
We have everything to do. You're the opposite.
So you have nothing to do with GSX?
Pine Street.
We have nothing to do with Pine Street. From
Pine
now
Street.
on, we'll see
Okay,
GXX out of
but
it.
on the Pine Street,
highway
I thought
barn,
you said
Pine
you're going to
Street.
pay them down to get to 25%, so that
We're
would...
not paying them down. We're subsidizing more
You
inventory.
do have something to do with Pine Street.
No, Pine Street's a completely different place. This is
when
Upton
I
Street.
understand.
No, you gotta let them answer.
Yeah,
Them
so,
answer.
okay. So you're not,
Exclusive projects
you have nothing to
completely.
do with Pine Street at all?
Nothing to do with Pine
I
Street
thought
at
you
all.
came out saying that that was going to be 25%. All right, so I get
They
confused right from the
both
beginning
are
because you
going
said GSX. All right, so that's my fault. So you have nothing to do with Pine Street.
Nothing to do with it.
That's going to have any affordable units in it,
It's going to have 25% affordability, so whatever the number of 317
but it's
is.
not a 40B.
It's a 40R.
And you're not giving them any money.
No, they don't need it for
Okay.
density like that.
All right. Okay.
Okay?
For that one.
Okay,
So
for that one.
All right, so now with
All
the
right,
Highway Barn,
all right,
you're paying
let's
down on that
keep
one.
it short.
Hold on. I'm trying to. I get confused with the whole GSX.
Just so we,
saying both.
from time perspective, I have
Yeah.
our cutoff at 7:30 because our meeting starts at 7:45.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will always, of course, come back at your request.
Okay.
So if you have
So
some more.
Pleasant Street's how many?
We have nothing.
You don't know yet.
Pleasant Street's a concept.
Yep.
So are you referring to Eastland, which is who came and proposed 2 projects? One on Pleasant Street, one on Sibley and,
Upton Street, to
Upton
make it more confusing, because there's two on Upton Street,
Yeah.
right?
let's call it Old Upton Street.
Sure.
Those are very much concepts. They're at the
Okay, you
beginning
don't know what those
phase.
numbers are.
I don't think they'd even be through a lip process for another 4 or 5 months.
But those are gonna be lips?
They would be. They would have to be.
Okay. And I guess my question in the bigger picture is, you said we've already hit safe harbor?
So the safe harbor works in a couple different components. There's a safe harbor that you get certified through DHCD, which is, for anybody who doesn't know the acronym, it's basically the overlord for housing in the state. They decide if you've made a certain benchmark in a particular year permitting a particular site. So you would need 1 or 2% towards your overall 10% required SHI. And if you hit that in a particular year, they give you either 1 or 2 years of basically a moratorium where you can make the decisions on your behalf and not have the option for, this is rude terms now, not have the option to go to the state and overrule your ZBA. essentially. I mean,
Okay.
there's more to it than that, but that's essentially what it is.
So I guess the question,
Okay, last,
All right.
go ahead, 30 seconds.
why?
Because you've been going for 20 minutes and he's got a meeting at 7:30.
Okay.
I'm highly entertained by the question.
Just ask me this,
Fire
okay.
away.
We should be getting together with the
Oh,
Affordable
that's
Housing
fine, that's fine,
Trust.
that's fine. I don't mind getting together with, so is it rolled out in the way that if we have safe harbor, you then wait another 2 years and then you do another project and then you roll out again? Or how, I mean, it seems like there's a lot coming at one time.
There is a lot.
And if there's a lot coming at one time, are you overdoing your safe harbor and then you don't take advantage of any moratorium because you've done them?
Not particularly.
It doesn't stretch it out.
So that,
Does it stretch it out?
once you hit 10%, it does stretch it out, yes.
More than 2 years?
It's permanent. Once you've hit 10% SHI.
As long as you're above that 10%.
Yes.
Right,
With the
right, right.
projects
Well, if
that
your
you
town
have
stops
currently
growing,
in
I
the
guess.
pipeline, some of the attractiveness of partnering with GSX on Upton Street, the GSX Upton, the highway barn, is that those apartments, once you hit the 25% threshold, all the apartments count.
Right.
That would put us over the 10% required affordability in our community. And it would probably do so for about 6 or 7 years. So during that 6 or 7 year time, if somebody came in and was asking to do a LIP, you could say no, or you could take a position where we want to negotiate something. The buck always is going to stop with the ZBA, who has the authority to say, no, we're not looking for that density in town, we're already at 10%.
Right, not to put a fine point on it, but you always have on a lip the ability to negotiate. I don't know how much is going on in town, but that's the whole point of a lip.
That is
Is
correct.
to negotiate. I don't see a lot of that happening, but this is my last question. It
Okay.
just made me forget what it was. Oh, because I happen to watch that selectmen's meeting. If a unit doesn't get rented or sold within, what happens to that unit?
So typically they fall into, it depends on if it's actually an apartment or if it's a single family. So the rules that guide and I can't specify the exact time frame, but eventually they will fall off. So a developer is allowed to sell
Does it go
them.
to CHAPA first, or do you
Just
just?
go to, we always use CHAPA.
Okay, and then if nobody comes to it, it falls off and goes back into
The
the,
developer doesn't have to sit on it for an extended period of time. I just don't know what that time is.
and then, this is a continue with the same question. On that meeting, and I think you were there, Yeoman was there and McCusker was there, they were explaining, but so was Dan Hill.
I was not there for that
You were
one. I
not
didn't
there?
watch it.
Well, anyway, and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought Dan Hill said a significant amount don't get taken up in affordable housing because it's really not affordable in the long run because it's 80% of the median income.
Well,
It's-
okay, so there's a couple
So
different
it threw me
things.
for a whole thing, because what are we doing if they're gonna go back out into the public again?
Nearly all of them get deed restricted, all the ones that we currently have done and developed in the past. These are apartments, so it's a little bit different because they get monitored actively every single year, whereas the single-family homes do not. You usually deed restrict them. When they come up, they go through the process again and go back into the lottery again. Where you might be confused is there was some talk about like local preference. So in negotiating the LIP or negotiating any of these particular development deals, you can tell them that you want Grafton citizens, our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, to have preference for qualifying for those units. In a lot of cases, Grafton residents don't meet the minimum requirements for.
So that's the 70%, it doesn't go to Grafton residents? He said something about 70%, which
Oh, okay, that's it. Thank you.
You're blurring a couple other issues with AMI as well. So typically, these are 80% of AMI, which is the bare minimum threshold. If you were to lower it to, say, 70 AMI, a lot more people would qualify and be able to afford it. But another thing that they also mentioned at that meeting, which is something that I alluded to in our 10 minutes ago in our conversation, is one of the things that the trust can put itself in a position to, and in partnership with the CPC, is these people who are coming and trying to qualify for these affordable units in town, which can't come up with down payments, because you still go through the normal process. We
Yeah.
can provide programs and opportunities for Grafton residents, especially the local initiative people, which are people that work here in town. We can provide those direct subsidies from the trust to get them into the home, which is something we really want to work on, because most of the 40B, so to speak, in town are single-family units, which are typically well beyond the capacity for, some of the people that are just coming into the workforce. and just, having families.
Thank you for that. Your grasp of the situation is truly outstanding. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
That last less than 5 minutes?
Less than 5 minutes. How many members are on your committee?
7.
7. And out of the 7, it's a full ranking body right now?
Yeah, I mean, we just need a quorum to make decisions, but yes, we've had much
What
more
night?
productive conversations in
Okay.
the past
And
year.
Bruce, what night do you guys meet usually? Once a
The
month?
second Thursday,
Second Thursday? Okay.
and we start at 7:45.
Okay. And one other thing I have to ask, if these are gonna be rentals, and we wanna work together and get the people in Grafton in, which I'm all for, to be honest with you, and you just hit on something that I liked, is people that are working for the town that can't afford this, and we help them out doing this, which I'm thinking of getting, how to get people to work for us. If we can offer them something like this program, I think it's a wonderful thing to do, number one.
Most certainly
Number
can.
two, okay, in the bottom end of the deal, who maintains these? Is it gonna be GNX, us? If they, fall through, or if they decide that, the apartment's getting old and needs an update, or we
So,
gonna
As
have a
far
set
as
set of
maintenance
rules?
and,
Maintenance.
and taking care of the facilities.
Yeah.
That's all on the actual parent company. That's, they take the nets from the leases, and they take care of their own lawns, they take care of their own carpet, things need to be changed. The monitoring service comes basically down through DHCD, and every year they monitor to see who's in the affordable units and what they're actually paying. So they'll have, like GSX Pine Street, will have an entity that's going to make sure that they collaborate with DHCD, and that's part of the paperwork that's in the front end of these projects. So in the particular one we're talking about on Upton Street,
Yep.
in our deal that we're negotiating with them, because it's not a straightforward lit process, it's actually quasi by right, we'll make sure that those provisions are in there so the trust can see who gets in there. We also have a much greater say at who can actually get in the units.
And one of my last questions, you said
One of your last questions?
I only have 2.
What, do you sit next to Brooke?
Well, what are
It
we
rubs
doing
off.
here if we
I'm
can't
trying
ask
to-
questions? I don't know
I was
why are
trying
you
to
rushing us
I'd
through
like to
this?
point out that Chris McGoldrick has said that the planning department's available to discuss the details of HSI Safe
But I-
Harbor. In additional detail
hold
is
on.
needed, feel free to contact
Okay,
him.
I just wanna know,
We'll also be redoing the housing production plan in the fall, now that we
Okay,
have new
that's-
census data, so we'll get concrete numbers on what our actual SSI threshold is. So that's forthcoming.
to get away from Brooke for a second here, okay, you said 123 units. That's not the total units that's going in there. That's what,
The total units that are proposed at this current time,
up on Upton Street.
yes.
Okay, 123. And we figure what, maybe 25% of that we can get?
Well, they have to do 10%.
Right.
In order to agree with the zoning to go through the planning board.
But I always look for
So
more.
we're encouraging another 20. Well, more is great.
Right,
But also the quality of the unit, so a ratio of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. So most of what is proposed there now is 1 and 2.
Okay.
The trust wants to see a couple 3 bedrooms,
Well,
because
yeah.
3-bedroom homes in town are incredibly difficult to find for a starting family.
right. I agree 100%. We
so-
need 3 bedrooms. And all these, even if we're doing a LIP program, that should be part of it, is they put in.
Well, that is, so most of those are governed by DHCD, so there's a ratio that they have to fulfill just to be a 40B project. Or else they kind of throw their application out the window when it comes before them for review beyond our ZBA.
All right, thank
know
you.
where
It's-
I
It's
stand.
coming up to be 7:30. Anyone else, a quick question at all? Again, the purpose of this, it was for Bruce to bring us up to date on exactly what's going on, and Bruce and Ed to bring us up to date as to what's going on. But I think some of these questions, I'm sure that you would invite people to come by for the meetings and ask any questions that they might have at that time. Am I right?
Just as a safe plug for what you're going to be discussing later, should we have had representation on this particular body, you would get active updates,
Yep.
I would love to.
especially when we're looking at asking for CPA funds, which we are going to do in the future, to provide some subsidy for these programs.
What happens is that things grow. all right? And new things come up that weren't around when everything started. And there are needs that make themselves known to us later on, and I think your observation is right on. So thank you.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me, appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And before we go on, I have to chastise Justin, because he was supposed to remind me that the first thing we do when we start off is to take attendance, because we're not all sitting here. So I'll just call your name, just let us know that you're here for the record. Kristen Belanger,
Here.
Sandy Brock. We know Sandy's here, we can see her.
You can call me here, I can't hear about, Jim, I can't hear about half, so here, I'm here, John.
Can Sandy hear?
You can't hear me, John? Can we relocate the owl?
Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you.
Was it good up
That's,
there?
yeah, that's something that I've never heard in my entire life.
Closer to that?
Owl's good for audio, or for visual, but not audio.
Apparently.
I haven't had a good.
Okay, we want it close, but certainly don't block my.
Can you resend that thing to me, the letters? Never mind.
Okay. Sandy?
I am here,
All right, Jim Gallagher is here.
although I
Yes?
just wanted to mention that we're only hearing about half of what you say in the, in your room there.
Ask her what half she's hearing, if she's
What
hearing
half?
you guys.
Are you able to hear by the dais here, or is it the people sitting at the table?
There seems to be a delay when you go back and forth, there's like a 5 or 10 second delay. And then that person, if they keep speaking, comes on, and then, but once you switch back and forth, there's just a weird pause.
Okay.
It keeps coming back,
All right, feel free to
there's a pause.
interject if you're not getting something, and we'll slow down the exchange.
I will.
Thank you.
I would just add that my experience with the owl the last few times I've done it is that its audio pickup is very directional, and it has to hear you and identify you on its 360 camera before it really gets a good signal over the system.
Okay. And Jim Gallagher is here. Ken Holberger,
I'm here.
Brooke Paget,
I'm here.
Paul Scarlett,
Here.
John Stevens,
Here,
all right. Richard Whitney,
Here.
Justin Wood,
Here.
and the staff, Joanne Duncan.
I think if you can try to have a little pause in between when you speak, you may have to resort to raising hands.
Okay, we can do that. Are these questions, are they automatically popping up?
I see them. Are they problematic?
Yes.
What happens is, because the Q&A is turned on, people who are attendees can type in a question.
All right,
So, and you can see everything on my screen. So I bring it up, I type the answer.
all right. What I'd like is I want to make sure that committee members have an opportunity to ask their questions first.
Okay,
And then if we get other questions, then we could address those as we go along.
that makes total sense.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if it pleases you, I can handle the Q&A so it does not appear on that screen. It's up to you.
are we going to have to pay Joanne less if you do that?
No?
My only thing with that is, are you gonna just be answering them and I won't know what, because I put it in the minutes that people ask questions.
I will not answer unless the committee is aware of an answer being typed. You know, that's how.
I'd just let
Perfect.
Joanne do it.
I'd let Joanne do it, too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ken, the treasurer's report.
Okay, Joanne, if you could let me
You can.
share, that I could put it up on the screen. Okay, I have good news to report. I finally was able to get together with the town accountant and update the reports that we do here with the closed-out fiscal 2021, which closed this last June 30th. And there have been a number of corrections to the estimates that we've been carrying that were all in the positive direction, and they totaled $85,000 above what we had been estimating. Now, we always try to estimate low so that we're not surprised in a negative way, but we got a nice little surprise in a positive way. That's $85,000 is about 5%. So I guess that's not too big, but anyway, it's good news, and it constituted a larger CPA surcharge than was estimated, and then just also a larger interest amount and some closeouts and reimbursements by the state. So that's good news. So we started fiscal 2022, that's this fiscal year, with $85,000 more in the undesignated fund than we had been carrying. And so that's, if you look at your report, that's starts out right there. So that's good news. So beyond that, fiscal 22 for us is just about done with. The only thing we have left to do is at the special town meeting, we transfer the Affordable Housing Reserve in its entirety to the Affordable Housing Trust every year. So that's the only activity we have for fiscal 2022, which closes this coming June 30th. So the good news is that our ending amount for the year is now at $900,000, rolling forward into the undesignated fund for the beginning of this coming fiscal 2023. So just as a summary of 2022, we started out with $1,389,000, and we had bond payments of $142,000. We granted $322,000, and there was an administration expenses. So we are moving forward into next year with $900,000. So moving into next year, if you look on the sheet that says fiscal 2023 on the top line, the town accountant, Mary, and I came up with a revenue estimate of $562,000 for this coming year. And again, that's apt to be low. And so we'll get an upside surprise a little later. The Department of Revenue has not yet given the CPA committee's guidance on the state match yet. And so we picked 32%, same as last year. However, before the end of this month and before town meeting, we expect to get updated guidance from the Department of Revenue, and so that number will change. Hopefully it'll be more than last year. So, and again, we estimated $20,000 for interest, which is the same as we always estimate. Then that adds up to $759,000, 10% of which goes into the 3 reserves. And again, when we get the updated state match guidance, those numbers will change somewhat. So that amount goes into the budgeted reserve, and we also have 2 bond payments to make. And this year we're taking them out of their associated reserves. So down here, you can see Pell Farm payment 14 of 20, $64,500. That's just getting a little bit lower every year. And the Townhouse, 1 Grafton Common, is $74,000, and that's the 8th payment of 20. Time flies. So beyond that, I have placeholders in the report here for the various warrants that we have. There was the town records, which my impression at the last meeting was that was probably not going to happen. So it's in here at 0 at the moment. But if we're going to do it, we'll put it here. Then there's the Universalist Church, $18,000, South Grafton Playground Accessibility, $135,000. All come, which we'll all take out of the budgeted reserve. And then we have the South Grafton Community House repainting, if should we do that, which is somewhere's
$50,000.
right there, $50,000. So That's it. So if we do those projects, that still leaves us with $1,200,000 of revenue that we could use for all our purposes. So the committee has plenty of funds to work with.
Okay, thank you. Again, the advantage of having Ken Holberger as our treasurer, it's more and more apparent every year. So thank you very much for that. Do we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I want to ask some questions.
Oh, yeah, but let's get it on the floor, and then I'll go for, so can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? You're on.
Mr. Whitney, first of all, how many open accounts do we have that we've given out money to that haven't been closed out? Do we have a figure on that?
I do not. I have a report on my desk at home.
Yeah.
I could look at it and count them up. I would say probably
10?
10.
It's, whatever projects are still open will have an account open.
Okay.
And the way we handle that on this report is that we're just looking at, when we make a grant, we say, okay, that money's out. And it's gone. We don't have that money with which to make another grant. And if they don't spend all the money, then the money comes back in, and we count it as coming back in.
Well, that's what I was, in a long thing here, trying to get to, is how much has come back to us in the past year. These projects that are still open, we have 10 open projects?
That's right. And most of them will send some small amount back, but it's usually not very much.
Okay.
Occasionally, in one case, one of the town-oriented grants got some additional funding from the state.
Yeah.
And so that money came back to this fund.
Okay, and now where does that go? Right back into our?
It goes
kitty?
right back into the actual account that it was dispersed from.
Okay. And,
The other thing that'll make you feel better about that is that we have sunsets on all of these now. So that when the project, it's a 2-year sunset.
Yeah.
So when that sunset comes, those funds come back to us.
automatically?
Yeah, they're not gonna just sit out there and.
Okay.
and,
If the project doesn't move forward, that
Yeah.
happens.
May we pause for one moment? People can't hear at all now.
Excellent job,
Oh.
Jim.
Wow, now
Yeah,
we hear you. Now we hear
Had to
you.
think about that for a minute.
All right. All right, so what we'd like is in between reports, if you could just repeat that, my ego would be most appreciative. All right, so are we good on the, we've got a motion? Any other questions?
Just a point of clarification, if I may. So you were just talking about, money sunsetting and being returned. So that is true if a project doesn't move forward. So if nothing is ever done, then that money gets sunsetted and returned. Once we have committed funds to a project that is moving forward, that sunset provision doesn't apply.
Okay. Rich
Justin.
Whitney.
Oh, okay, sorry.
To answer my question, Paul, is definitely if it's not moving forward, it comes back. That's what you're saying. But what happens if it's completed and there's funds left over? Does that money come back?
Yes,
Yeah, right. And we have 10 accounts open right at this moment,
yes.
basically, give or take 1 or 2 here. Okay. Now, out of those 10 accounts, do we have a figure of how much money's out there, and what's the possibility of these accounts being done?
Can I
All
just
these
ask
projects.
Joanne, do you still have that, the
Yeah, I
spreadsheet?
do.
Could you make sure that, Richard has it? On the spreadsheet, we have all of the things out there.
Okay.
That are done, that are completed and pending, and you can see it and do a running total there for yourself.
Yeah, not because this is excellent, but to see it actually, where the money actually's gone, you know, for each project and how much is left over, and, you know, I mean, we can have money back for, we can give out more money to other.
Okay,
people.
but what you want to remember is that once the money has already been assigned to someone, it disappears from that report.
I understand
And they
that.
have until the time of their sunset
Yeah.
to use those funds. So we really don't want to, it'll screw us up if we're looking to find out, well, how much is there now?
No, I'm not
You know
saying
what I
that.
mean?
I'm saying when the sunset comes, is the money returned?
Yes.
And where does it go? It goes back into our kitty, for we could turn around and give it out some more, okay? For we can grab some interest there, or if we have money sitting out there, nobody's doing anything, does it automatically close? I was never told this. Was it automatic? Does that account if the project's not
Again, when
moving
it
forward?
sunsets, the money comes back. If we're notified that, that the task is done and all bills have been paid, then we can take that money back.
Mr. Chair, may I address his question? I think I understand what you're asking, Richard. So if a project is moving forward, we don't necessarily know how much funding they're going to have left over at the end. They may not know how much they're going to have left over at the end. You have contingencies that pop up. So until they're finished with their project and return those funds, we have no way of knowing how much they're going to return.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get to, is do we have money sitting out there in accounts that these jobs have not been finished, and it's just sitting there, and, you know,
It's
it
been
hasn't
assigned to
been
them.
given
so-
back to us.
Well, no, technically, it's still there for them to use on their project.
Right, but if the sunset has passed and everything else,
Then
that's
we've
what I'm
already
getting
got
at.
it back.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
got the money back.
Yeah, this is Ken Holberger. So if perhaps it's now the microphone's pointing at me. The answer to your question is yes, there is some money out there, and the town's accounting system keeps very good track of the unspent money. And when, but I guess an important point is that the amount of money that is unspent and the amount of money that comes back either because the project closes and the money's not spent, or it sunsets and it just goes away. That amount of money is very small compared to the amount of money that we have in our funds, other funds left to grant. So it's, that's a very small percentage. So it's not that important that the committee keep track of it. The accountants keep track of it. And, every year, all the money that comes back gets added back into these spreadsheets for reuse.
Rich Whitney here, not to be disrespectful or anything, but when you're doing your checkbook at home and you're balancing it out, you want to make sure where every penny went and where everything comes back. That's all I'm trying to get to.
Yes, you're right.
Is at the end of the day, we have X amount of dollars that went out. It's met its sunset, and that money's sitting in an open account somewhere, it's sitting somewhere, and it hasn't been returned to us. That's what I'm trying to find out, is if our money's come back, when did it come back, and do we have any open accounts out there that there's X, Y, or Z money that can be used in other accounts to give out to other people? That's all I'm trying to
Okay,
get
the
at.
easy answer is no.
Okay.
There's not, and that once an article sunsets, that money comes right back.
Okay.
Okay? Anyone else?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, Richard. So the accountant for the town
Yeah.
keeps very close watch
very
over
very
all the
close.
money. When a project is finished, the folks who were running that project are legally obligated to return those funds to us. And again, our accountant keeps track of that. So once it does get returned to us, then it gets put back into our funds from the account that it was taken from to begin with, as Ken mentioned earlier.
I just want to,
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Are there any other questions?
Yes.
Your question's answered, right. Any other questions?
Yep. My question and thought is just something that I've been thinking about for a while, again, and to the committee, is that actually doing the treasurer stuff is something that I'm a little bit more interested in how that goes on day to day. Is it something that you think I could shadow you on for the remainder of at least this this time until we do another reorganization as a committee, so I can pick up a little more, learn a little more about how you handle it. You're the expert, so
Sure,
okay.
sure.
Touch base after then.
All right, are you maneuvering?
Just wanted to learn more.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, the motion is made and seconded as to whether or not we accept the financial report. Kristen Belanger?
Aye.
Kristen Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock?
I'm just gonna abstain because I haven't heard enough of the discussion, so I feel more comfortable just abstaining.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sandy abstains. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger, aye. Brooke Paget?
Aye.
Brooke Paget, aye. Paul Scarlett?
Aye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens?
I'll abstain as well. It's difficult to hear everything that everybody's saying.
Very good. John Stevens abstains. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
Richard Whitney, aye. Justin Wood?
Justin Wood, aye.
Justin Wood, aye. The treasurer's report is done, and now of 27 items, we're now in number 4. Okay, and here's the good news. There is no clerk's report, so you can check that off if you're following along at home. So let's talk about the South Grafton Community House repainting.
Who's our rep on that project? Potential rep, who would be the rep?
I don't think it's been assigned.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
do you want me to come up, or are you?
If you would, please.
So I can offer some input from, that we got from the Coalition for Community Preservation. We weren't sure, this is the first time a project like this has come before us that I can recall in my tenure on here, where we have a historic project that is primarily being asked to be funded for painting as opposed to rehabilitation or preservation type of work. And as a committee, we weren't sure whether or not that was something that could be funded through CPA. So we did reach out to the coalition to get clarification on that point, and I know, Evan, that you've been included in that correspondence. Basically, what we have been told is it is an area where we have to be careful because maintenance is not a covered expense for CPA projects, whereas preservation and rehabilitation is. And based on the legal findings, and he did share input from the Department of Revenue on that, from an attorney there, clearly laying out that based on existing case law, it really depends on the percentage of work that is involving things other than painting, things that would fall under preservation or rehabilitation. So I know that you had talked in your correspondence with the coalition that it's about 20% of that project you feel is related to that type of work, whereas the other 80% is painting. In their opinion, that percentage is too high for them to say that CPA funds would be an appropriate use for that. They did give us a loophole, if you will, in that we could decide as a committee that if the 20% of work that is related to rehabilitation and preservation were to be funded, that would be a usable expense, a supportable expense. So from my mind, that is something that I would like to see happen. I want to support historic preservation. It's kind of my bailiwick. So, you know, but we have to work within the parameters of the law. And that is our responsibility. It's really our charge. And we want to make sure that we don't set up potential for litigation against the town if we don't allocate our funds as the act permits.
Thank you. What I would like to do, because I think that this is ambiguous, and I'm going now to the documentation that we get from the Community Preservation Coalition. And in this example they're giving here, they're talking about things that are allowable and things that are not allowable. And under allowable, they're saying that capital improvement, reconstruction or alteration of real property that, number one, materially adds to the value of the real property or appreciably prolongs the useful life of the real property. Number two, becomes part of the real property or is permanently affixed to the real property so that removal would cause material damage to the property or article itself. And number three, is intended to become a permanent installation or is intended to remain there for an indefinite period of time. As I'm reading this, what I'm looking at is, now we don't have a lot of information on the application relative to the damage that's being done there, other than to, if we look at it at face value, the building is in need of repainting. If we go into this further, and the paint is currently peeling, we spent $200,000 on the wood and the other structural things that were done on the South Grafton Community House. So my question would be, is that if we are risking all of this restoration work that was done, if we are risking that being ruined and opening another $200,000 request, that seems to meet this the capital improvement allowable thing relative to the reconstruction.
That isn't the interpretation that the coalition has given us from the Department of Revenue. Did you read the letter from
I
the
did read
Department
it.
of Revenue?
I did read. I read the notices going back and forth.
Yeah, and I totally agree. You know, we've invested quite a bit of money into that building. I don't know the exact figure, but it was over 200,000, and that was probably 12 to 15 years ago, somewhere in that time frame. And yeah, paint is important to maintain it, but it is a maintenance expense. But I do want to be able to assist, and where we can legally do that, according to the information provided by the DOR and the coalition, is with regard to anything that's involving preservation or rehabilitation, which is what you were reading. The work that you were talking about there is preservation or rehabilitation. And that would be the repair of rotting wood and things other than the painting itself.
Okay, I understand completely what you're saying, and we'll go on to someone else in a minute, but I don't want to beat a dead horse. But my feeling is that that's exactly what happens if this is, don't think of it as Benjamin Moore is going to come down and paint the building. I think that we're talking about preserving the historic wood that is there, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
Brooke?
well, I was going to say, I agree with you, and I was for this project until I saw the email. I mean, you said in there capital projects, is that something that's, and then it goes on?
This
and
here is, this is from the
not a
Community
capital
Preservation
project.
Coalition.
Right, I understand,
Which,
but-
from the boot camp.
I understand,
okay,
but the-
which we all should have went to. I
Okay,
did.
okay,
Well,
okay,
what
okay.
What I was reading was, he said allowable capital improvement, and then it gives you different designations on how to do that.
Right.
In this particular case, the painting is the majority of the bill, and the improvement or the fixing up is a small part of it. I mean, he said exactly, not that I'm gonna quote him because it fits right into my world, because the last time we were here, I made a point to say that CPC money is not for places that have budgets. And he even said it, you know, in his letter, buildings get painted dozens of times out of the budget. That's what buildings do. They get painted out of budgets. And this should be done as general maintenance out of the general fund for the budget. Now, a big ticket item, that a roof, rotted wood, if it was flipped, then I'm all for it, right? 80% wood and 20% paint.
That would be supportive.
That would be supportable.
Justin's
The guy
before
is
you.
saying right to us, you can't do it. I mean, we asked the question, and I'm for it. I want, because I don't feel as though they have a line item, but they've said we can't do it. So,
Mr. Chair,
I don't know if there's a lot of.
can I?
Okay, yes, Evan?
So one of the things I think we're hung up on is, I could literally go back and rewrite this application and you would fund it in 2 seconds. I'm very transparent about what I'm trying to do on this thing. I could just call it historic reservation, replacement of wood, resurfacing, and we wouldn't be talking about paint at
Well,
all.
that would be a fraud.
No, it's not called fraud.
If you're putting wood, if you're saying I'm putting
I'm
wood
getting-
and I'm
So can I
painting-
make a point? Is
Sure,
that possible
sure,
for me
sure,
to finish
sure,
what I'm saying?
Sure, go ahead.
So one of the things that I find interesting about this whole dynamic, because I've done this exact project 6 different times, this exact thing. Scrape the building, replace the wood, paint the wood that you just spent the CPC money to replace so that it doesn't rot and you continue on from there. That's basic historic preservation. We do it all the time. You're doing it at a gazebo. You're taking off all the wood, repainting it. It's
Percentages are different, Evan.
well,
That's
no,
the difference.
Okay,
but
let's see.
here's
He's got
where I
the floor.
disagree with that. So Stuart asks me for a percentage. I'm happy to go and get an actual percentage. Let's change the application for a study, probably $30,000 to do a paint study, an analysis of the building. This is what I'm saying. That's why I don't do that. It's not worth the money to do the study to then figure out exactly how much wood is rotted. It's exploratory. So we don't have a line item for this. And, you know, the lesson that is crazy, that happens all the time is if you let that building rot more, you'll be eligible. And Paul, I think
That's the sad
Yeah,
part.
it
isn't it?
happens all the time, though.
Right.
That's
Okay,
the way the state works.
please, he's got the floor.
So I think that I respectfully disagree with Stuart's interpretation of what that means, even reading the DOR guidance, to be quite honest with you. I think if you go look at all of the projects done throughout the Commonwealth, this is happening every single year, because this is how municipalities maintain and preserve their historic artifacts constantly. That's the basic
you're not
underlying
next. You're not
principle of what
next.
CPA is supposed to do. And so I don't see why, even looking at the projects you've done in Grafton, when you go back through the list, it seems to be pretty congruent with what you're trying to achieve here, to maintain your historic assets.
Okay, no, wait, you're third. No, Justin's next. No, you're
thank you.
third now. You didn't have a question?
I have thoughts, but I gotta fix that.
Okay, no, you're third. Brooke?
No, let somebody else. I mean, I guess the only thing I was going to jump back, because I jumped on and saying that's a fraud, because I thought you were saying we could say it's wood and say it's paint. So I'll back up on that. So I didn't mean to jump down on that the way I heard it.
Okay.
I still think, you know, it's the parameters of what we're in. And to say we can finagle it to make it work, this guy is saying who's the head of it, that's not the way to do it. If we have to come back with a different proposal another time, and listen, I hear all the time where it's got to get worse before it can get better. And believe me, it's frustrating. But that's the rules of the game. And I don't want to, even though it makes more sense to me, and I want to paint that building, to do it this way. If we didn't have this letter, I'd vote for it. I can't vote for it now. This guy's telling me we can't do it. And even though you said it's done all around, he even makes a point of saying in the letter, there's no CPC police. No one's going to come arrest anybody if we do it.
Right.
But you're not doing it right. So if other communities want to do it wrong and skirt around things, that's not my business. I'm on here for however long, and as long I can't go against the direction of the people who run the program, even though I want to, because you were here last time. I was for this one and not for the other one. But
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Richard
Whitney. Okay. I've read Stuart's letter, I'm sorry. Brooks is in my back of my mind here, talking about this. He always does. But anyways, as everything that I have read here, and I've seen, and the last meeting I was at home and recuperating. But anyways, going to the workshop, this is from this gentleman I took the workshop from, okay? If
And I
he's-
have been to that, by the way.
Okay. He, in the workshop that I was asked to join, to go to, for I could have knowledge of what's going on, okay, in our coalition here, okay? It states in black and white what Jim read, okay? This gentleman, when Stuart wrote this out, Yeah, but once you take off that paint, you're gonna have bare wood. And even with the windows, and I pointed out last time with the pictures were up there, and I said, there's rot in those windows. It's already there, and I believe one of the members said, no, there can't be, we just replaced those. Well, let me tell you, I have a Colonial over on Greeny Drive, and I had brand new windows put in 10 years ago. I replaced them 4 years ago with all brand new windows because the wood rotted out.
Yeah.
That's within 6 years.
They weren't flashed.
So I put $90,000 into my house to do the siding all over, it's cedar siding, and repaint it because when they were stripping it off, the paint, all the siding underneath was junk. So for me to say to Brooke or to anybody else here that this is the wrong thing to do, no, it's not the wrong thing to do. It's the right thing to do. If not, we're gonna be in trouble 4 or 5 years down the road, or even less. Water does a number. And unbelievable. I have a brand-new Jeep outside, fairly new Jeep.
Okay,
And
let's keep it on the article.
on this, and water
We're
destroys
not paying for
the
your
Jeep.
Jeep. All right, hang on.
But I'm for this. I 100%
Okay,
think that Stewart did not read his own writing here.
The
okay, thank you.
executive director of the program.
All right, here we go.
Right.
All right, I don't think anybody here, I don't know because we haven't taken a vote, but I have a feeling that nobody here is against doing this. I know I'm not against preservation of a historical building. I want it if that's what this actually was. And the problem I think we have here is, would we potentially be setting up the town for litigation?
No.
If we were to move forward. I don't know that because we don't have input from our town council. So that, to me, would help me to feel better about supporting it if she were to review it and to say that, you know, this isn't putting the town in jeopardy. You know, I understand the difficulties of maintaining these buildings, and I want to see them maintained. And I want to be able to use CPA monies to do that type of work. But I just, as my role here is to make sure that we're not doing something that is going to set up the town for litigation. So if we could get Ginny's
I'm
input on
going to be
that.
very quick. Unless you want to go, you go ahead.
No, Sandy was ahead of you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sandy?
Thank you. I think you're gonna hear a theme here, which is, I have no issues with this project, but I will tend to rely on people who have the understanding of case law and their interpretations, do it as a routine, as a professional. And, you know, part of kind of my personal thing is CPC does a lot of really good things, but no matter what we do, I want to be within the confines of the guidelines. And to me, Stuart's letter is fairly clear. Yes, it's you know, defining and estimating and the percentage of what work is what is can be discussed. But I thought it was fairly clear in my reading of his letter that this does not raise to the level of being typically approved for CPC funds. I mean, so I'm not worried about what other cities or towns do or how many times people have gotten money for this. I'm more just concerned with the interpretation of the expert and following to the best of my ability that interpretation. So that's kind of my position on this.
Thank you.
I'm going to be very quick. I'm going to echo what Sandy's saying, but to Paul's point, I don't care if council comes back and says you won't get caught. I know we're not going to get caught. He says it right in the letter. There's no CPC police. We're not going to get caught. That's not a reason not to follow the law.
We are following the law.
Come on.
You have the executive director of the CPC program telling you this is not appropriate. For me, it's not about getting caught. It's about the integrity of myself and the board and doing what's right. And people can vote any way they want, but when the executive director says don't do it, then I'm not going to do it. And Paul, I guess what I was cutting you off in the sense, I don't care if town council says it's okay. this guy's saying it's not okay. So, sorry, not okay. It's not that what you said. You said if we were going to get sued. I don't care if we're not going to get sued, because we're not going to get sued. We're not going to get sued.
Okay,
I like to
no,
make a
no,
motion.
please.
I like
John, you're second. I'm going to go before you. Let me ask you this question. If we had the opportunity to have the to and fro with Stuart last week, what changes would have been made to your application?
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess I'll accept responsibility for going on my experience and filling out the application to the detail level that was needed to do $2.5 million worth of work that I've done so far. And this has always been my experience. So I go to CPC, and it's really how can we help you get this done? Not, prove it. So it's been a little different experience for me. So I don't know that I would have changed much on the application. I think once I submit the application's.
But you submitted it, given your past practice and your past
Yeah,
information.
I probably would have spent more time trying to determine, anecdotally, I guess, what percentage would be preservation if I'm going to email that to.
All right, just as an aside before we go to John, I don't want you ever to think that, that this CPC is doing anything but wanting to work with you. All right, so please file that if you will. Sure. John, you're up.
Let's hope you can hear me okay. I really want to see this project done, but I agree that painting, and has always been an understanding of mine, is not allowed unless it's part of a larger project. So because we don't really have an estimate that splits it out very in a detailed way, but based on experience, like Evan has said, there's a lot of rotten wood. He's seen it, or I'm not sure who the building manager or whatever that person was that saw all this, but can we not revise it to say we'll do a 60-40 split to where CPC, because I know rotten wood costs a lot more to repair, and then you have to paint that, and then that would count, and then the other 30 we'll say, or 40, whatever percent you agree to, if you would agree to that, the town would pay, because we don't have an estimate from a contractor that says we believe, and I know once you get in, you find more than you normally, with an older building, than you normally expect. It's certainly not 100% all has to be replaced siding, but I feel like if there's some negotiation that would allow us to pay more than half, I think that's more than reasonable, and it's going to get the building done, because I think that he can find, $20,000 somewhere in his budget to pay for paint.
Can I ask one quick question, because maybe I'm a little lost on. Are you painting the replacement wood, or are you painting everything?
You kind of got to paint everything.
Okay, so that's the problem. I think we could support replacing the wood and painting, because people are saying you're going to leave that wood open and blah, blah. Painting or replacing the existing wood and painting that wood, but you're not going to get the whole building. So how much, can't you get,
Well, it's going to be two-tone.
Well, let him talk, please.
what, two-tone? It's white.
No, it's not white.
Oh, no,
So
that's
how
right,
many
it's cream.
how many people went and looked at the building since the last
Yeah.
time?
I was there today.
Yeah.
Okay, but,
So what do you estimate the rotten wood at? What'd you think? I'm guessing. I'm not a carpenter.
but let me just ask
Yeah,
you,
sure.
if you have roof damage, all right, and a third of your roof is damaged in a hurricane, they're gonna come out and they have to replace the entire roof. So if you have wood that's part of this historical building, and that has to be replaced, and part of that replacement is painting, then all must be painted. That's anyone I'm talking now.
You got the floor.
That's right, I do. And anyone who knows anything about any kind of construction will tell you that you cannot paint just a door and then leave the rest of the house the same way. Okay, you're up.
The only thing that would allow that would be if the percentage of the rot and work that involves preservation or rehabilitation is a high enough percentage that it's the majority of the project, then it would be allowed to paint the entire building.
All right,
That-
I respectively
That's
disagree.
how the bandstand can be done. That's how work done on the Townhouse could be done. That's how repainting of the Grafton, South Grafton Community House was done before, was because the percentage was much higher and it allowed the building to be painted.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone, no, wait, he's,
So, just to say, I think I'm with you, Jim, on this interpretation and understanding of it all. I do recognize that Evan said we just don't know how much rotten wood there'll be to replace. He was throwing the budget of $50,000 as an estimate of what he knows. This is my, you can cut me if I'm wrong, but
go ahead.
of what he knows, he expects to need to do. There could be more to do. So, and I'm also of the opinion that pretty much all of us on this committee have at least so far made up our minds on how we would vote on this project. I could be wrong on that, but I think I have a few ideas on these on my end how we might move forward in some way to support Evan. And so if it pleases the chair, I would like to make a motion on if we'll support Evan's proposal as it sits without voting on the warrant article language to see how we all feel as a board on that particular point.
okay, just a point of interest here. We're not going to actually vote on these applications until item 10.
Yes.
All right, so what we're doing at this junction is to get a report as to what the application is for and basically what our questions are.
Yeah.
So any suggestion that you make is certainly timely right now.
Yeah, the questions that I have would start basically, I was going to ask if the committee would approve it as it sits right now with the application in a vote. And if not, my next suggestion might be to ask Evan, would us supporting a $50,000 thing to town meeting that does not articulate painting any unaffected wood, would that be something that's doable and useful? So if the wood is not being replaced, would that be a useful condition on this?
It'd be really hard to track that, to be quite honest.
Or
with
not
you.
painting at all?
I'd have to, right. Well, I mean, we came up with the estimate of $50,000, knowing that it's going to be over $50,000. I mean, it's just what's going to happen. As soon as we touch it, we're going to start opening stuff, and there's going to be more stuff. It's done it enough times. I think if the committee doesn't want to, I would just say it's kind of all or nothing, to be quite honest with you, because otherwise I got to figure out what else to do, because I'm not in good conscience going to let it stay open to the elements for another year.
No, I would agree with that.
Okay, John's next, and then you, and then you.
Through you to Evan, would you be amenable to a percentage? Because I know you said you think it's going to be more than this. Would you be, if it's more, you're not going to come back to us? Or are you? That's question one.
No, okay.
You want to get this done this summer, is that right?
Yeah, that was the intent, because I've seen what happens when you leave the envelope is failed. It's going to ruin, other things it's going to be a domino effect, Sorry.
Okay, I missed the first half.
Yes, I want to do it this summer. No, not getting me?
Yes,
Are you amenable to a split so that we can kind of hang our hat on, we're following the guidelines or guidance that you can't pay to paint, but you can pay to restore and to paint. So at least we're not paying the full request. So we're saying we didn't pay to paint all the buildings. We paid to do restoration and then painting. So that gives us an out. I will vote for that. Just, even if it's 10% of what you're asking, if you say 45,000 instead of 50, and then I feel comfortable with that. Is that something that's amenable to you, to amend your request?
So, looking around the room, probably not.
Well, I don't
at 45
understand it. I
grand.
don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing, it's gonna exceed 50 grand. I have funding that I was trying to identify to play the buffer, but if you don't go to 50,000, then my money won't get it across the finish line, it's just not gonna happen. So, I don't think John can hear me, but
Okay, well, how much more do you really think it's gonna be? That, to me, that would, if it's gonna be 100,000, then it's a slam dunk. You get, from me, you get the money, because you're not asking for us to paint the whole building. That is gonna cost, that cost will be the restoration and painting, if it's gonna be $100,000 project, if that's what you think it's gonna be.
yeah, well.
I'm still not sure. I think
So what John is saying is that if we think that 50,000 is half of the project, then he would support the full 50,000 because we think the whole project is 100.
That's it. Once you add in the fact that, please, once you add in the fact that the cost of wood right now, let alone the cost of getting weathered wood and so forth, and the other expenses, I don't think it would be unreasonable at all to think that you might be talking about $100,000 for the entire job, so that this $50,000. So you're not being aware that you really should have told us about the entire cost, and where you were going to take care of that yourself. That would make this $50,000 request completely legitimate. Go.
Just to clarify, I think what John was saying is a little bit different from what you're saying. I think what he's trying to get across is if the 50,000 is inaccurate because there is more preservation or rehabilitation type of work that needs to be done, then that could put it over the threshold. If it's not 20%, if it's 50-50, I think that would make us feel a lot more comfortable that we are within CPA and supporting that. The problem we have is what was provided didn't really provide any kind of breakdown of that work, and the 20% that you're giving us, I know, is your guesstimate.
Right.
So is there any way we can get a more firm estimate that, there is in fact more rot that would help support us?
Well, I don't think it's even a question of more rot. I think it's a question of the additional cost after this 50,000. So he doesn't have to go out and find more spots.
Cost for what, though? More painting? The painting's more expensive?
Everything, right across the board.
It's still based on the percentage of work that's related to rehabilitation or preservation versus painting.
My total project cost is $88,000. That's what I have between the 50 I asked from CPC and the money that I have for the South Grafton Community House in my regular course of duties.
If we could get that breakdown, the percentage of work that would fall under preservation and
Sure.
rehabilitation, it would help us a lot.
Okay,
Okay.
I can do that.
All right, so you're telling us tonight that that information is available, because we're going to make a vote tonight. So you're telling us, if I understand correctly, you're telling us that that information about what you just told us is 100% correct. So we could go forward with the understanding that that additional documentation is coming. Is that correct?
Yes, I can put that together.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to move on.
Can I speak? No, I had my hand up and you went
Okay,
over
okay,
here,
okay,
over there,
go,
over
quick.
there,
It
over
is his
here.
turn.
Okay, because
No,
I
I'm
think...
not gonna be quick.
No.
I'm gonna get to the point.
Okay, I think we just got to the point.
No, we didn't. In my eyes, we didn't, Jim, and I'm
Okay.
sorry.
All right, go.
Okay? I'm 100% for this. As soon as you start opening up that building, you're not gonna get a percentage until you open up that building, okay, where the rot is. You don't know if it's 20%, 30%, or 40% in there. So this $50,000 is just a drop in the bucket. It could be up to 80 to 100,000. We don't know. But as it stands right now, I would love to make a motion to accept this and move on and get on.
It's already there. It's already there. So what just happened before you spoke is that the 50,000 was, sounds like a good deal right now, and with the understanding that additional documentation is going to come showing that the total, now listen to me now, don't campaign, that additional 38,000 all right, is gonna be documented later on.
I understand that,
So
but you
that,
didn't even
that
give me
makes
a
it good.
chance to talk.
No, you've had a chance to talk. So I'm telling you, is that you and I are on the same page right now.
Okay.
And I don't want to go dig in any other trenches, all right? Thank you. Yes,
I suggest that we rename this project to the South Grafton Community House Exterior Restoration and Painting.
Good idea.
Love it.
perfect. Let's do it.
A good idea.
Thank you.
Second.
Joanne, can you do that, please?
Community house exterior restoration and painting
Yep. And I'll send you a spreadsheet tomorrow,
with that title.
That'd be great.
and then you can push it out to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And again, I'm not cutting anyone off, but once we reach a point where we need to be, we need to move on. All right, so keeping in mind that we're not going to actually vote until item 10 at this meeting. So the UUSGU, that's you. You can't talk unless you tell us what UUSGU means, though. We want to make sure you remember.
It's Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton.
Excellent, that's it.
All right. Thank you for coming back.
Yep.
You have submitted, and you've been here a couple of times. I know that we had some concerns when you were here before, and some folks have been working with you relative to this project, and hopefully bringing it to something that everybody is on board about. Is that your understanding?
Yes, and I think and with the help of Paul Scarlett, we have looked at some of the concerns. There was, the case in Acton, I believe?
Yes.
And that was stained glass window with religious themes that was there. We're talking about something quite different. We're talking about access to a building that's available for the community, is available now, and will be more readily available for the community. And it's a historic building that we want to make more accessible. So it's a different animal.
All right. Does anyone have any questions about this article? Okay. Thank you. You're welcome to stay. As I said, okay. I couldn't believe it myself, but go ahead.
My only question is, has anything in what you expect as the actual project changed since our last meeting here with you?
No, it's still the same. We've garnered 5 letters of support from Grafton organizations. That has changed, but the basic project is still the same.
Okay.
Those letters are part of the file as well. Ken?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that with funds for the various projects coming from the town's Community Preservation Act, the committee usually likes to see some acknowledgement at the site of the project that some of the funds came from the Community Preservation Committee. And it really depends on the size of the project. In some cases, there's big wooden granite signs. Other times, they're just like a little plaque someplace.
So this is going to be an architectural and engineering design specifications study.
Right.
And we would, in any documents we produce, because it'll be a document as opposed to the actual vertical lift that we ultimately want, in any study that was published, we'd be happy to acknowledge the assistance of the Grafton Community Preservation
That'd be
Committee in
great.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No other hands are up, right? Okay. So, the South Grafton Elementary playground accessibility.
Good evening.
Good evening, and Amy, thank you for coming back. And as with the last application, you had been here before. There were some concerns that were made at that time, and there was additional information that you got for us and that you made available on the application. And I know that we had some to and fro with Stuart with this. So let me ask you, is there anything that you wanted to add right now?
I can't think of anything, but the application was revised to
Indicate $135,000.
$135,000 that you guys would be covering the play structure, not the paving. So that took care of the accessibility aspect.
Okay.
So as far as I'm aware, we don't have anything to add at this time.
All right, are there any questions on the board? Ken?
Yes, same question as before. With this $135,000 grant from the CPAC, how would you suggest that the contribution be acknowledged in a visible way?
I don't remember this question from before.
No, it was just from the last topic that we just had.
Oh, well, as I'm just the school committee chair and I'm not the head of the physical plant, I'm not empowered
Bottom
to.
line is, what we're looking for is
You want a
that
sign.
in any of these projects where funding comes from the Community Preservation Act, we would like to see that so that people could see where their CPA deduction on their taxes, so they could see where that money is going.
Well, I certainly can't make a promise that there would be a standalone sign installed out there. I really don't know what they would do. I'm sure something could be done, but I don't know what the specifics would
Magic marker on the wall would do.
be. Well, we don't want to encourage graffiti, Jim.
All right.
Well, this is a playground structure, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, then, some kind of a sign
Yeah.
in the bounds of the playground structure.
We could put a plaque under the rubberized surface.
How about
But
above?
it's something
How
for
about
you to
above?
consider,
Sure.
all right?
I think if it's in the structure, the people that you want to see it aren't going to be able to see it because the adults aren't going to go into the structure. So it would be something outside. What? The answer's yes. Sure, I'm told the answer's yes.
Thank you.
I think John has his hand up.
Okay, I was going to go around. John?
I'm sorry.
There is already a sign out there because I think the PTG had funded maybe one of the structures in the past. And somehow, if we could somehow incorporate just another piece of a sign underneath of that or rehab of that sign, I think you don't have to have a standalone sign. I don't think I'd want a standalone sign. Something fairly discreet, but that would piggyback on the other one. I think that would be a very acceptable alternative.
Thank you, John. Yes.
Kristen Belanger. In some previous communication, I don't know if it was in your grant application or if I heard you say it, it was mentioned that you had applied for a grant through the state and I wasn't sure I understood. Were you denied for that grant or
Twice.
was it just?
Yes, twice. We've been denied for the Competitive Municipal Americans with Disabilities Act grants. We applied in 2020 and 2021. But there are thousands of projects, maybe millions, competing for those dollars, and we're just not getting anywhere.
Do you know what the reasoning was for not being accepted?
They don't give us a reason. They just say no.
My understanding is they liked someone else better as far as a proposal.
Well, if I had to guess, Grafton is seen as an affluent community, whatever that means. It's the same reason we don't get.
They went by Ken's house.
It's the same reason we don't get as much funding from the state for the schools or anything else. It's how we're perceived. You look at the median home value in town, and you think, well, those people are well off and they don't need this money.
Okay, and then my other question is, the only issue I have with this is I have a little bit of trouble knowing, the school has their own budget for these types of things and understanding when that can't be figured out, it rolls over into CPC. And I'm just trying to justify this in my head and if it's acceptable or not. Where in the school budget would this type of line item typically come from?
It wouldn't be in the school budget. It would be a capital expense that would be funded separately,
So there's CIPC?
probably. And that's what the remaining money that's there that we took out, those items, I believe they came from CIPC from last year, but we hadn't gotten to spend it because of supply chain issues and whatnot. We could have started the project last summer, but not replaced the play structure, which means now you're moving and putting the old play structure back, which isn't great. It's obviously ideal to do it all at once. And in terms of maximizing accessibility, that's what we'd like to do.
Okay, the other thing that I wanted to keep reminding people is that we had the CIPC people in here with the exact reason being is we wanted to see if there were projects that have been on that list forever that were never going to be funded that might meet the CPA requirements. We went over this project with looking at it from a CPA standpoint. And yes, you think school should be paid by the town, but as it turns out, that these projects that are being talked about here and the acceptability and everything like that, they also fit the CPA guidelines. So it was really a good move because CIPC was not going to fund it. They couldn't afford it. Brooke?
You said you had a correspondence with Stuart on this one? That's what you said in the beginning.
I think
You did?
were you maybe mixing up this with digitization of the town records? I never went to Stuart regarding this.
I
You
thought
never asked me to.
I thought we called him like 2 months ago, and then you had changed it.
I
Well, they
don't-
did pare stuff
We,
back
we
because they had
called
other
him
things.
like 2 years ago when
Months, years.
Dan,
Dan Gale?
thank you, Dan Gale came to you with a application, but that was for only blacktop.
Yep.
And that was when you asked that I speak to Stuart, and he,
So that was more than 2 months ago?
a little bit,
You okay?
That was like 3 or 4 years ago because it
was it
wasn't
3
too.
or 4?
It wasn't too.
And it
Let's not
still
rub
hasn't
this
been
in.
replaced for the record.
Okay, thank
It
you.
is an allowable use, though.
It is an allowable use,
You're
that's the
saying
bottom
it
line.
is?
Yes.
What, the blacktop or this?
Not the blacktop, this.
This project.
Is that, are you good?
I'm good.
The
Okay?
only thing, and
Yep,
I
go.
had my hand up. If it's allowable use, that's good. I just have to throw out there, even though I'm probably gonna vote for it, if you're saying it's an allowable use. We gotta be cognizant that is not the reason to have CPC is to supplement town budgets. That is not its purpose. And it sounds like it is leaking into that, and pretty soon, you're gonna have every department head in here trying to get CPC money. And I probably won't be here, so you'll have to deal with that. So I'm just telling you, that's not the reason it was made. That's not how we sold it to the town. The town was told it would not supplement budgets, and now we're supplementing budgets.
No, we're not.
Okay, no, we're not. And that's the whole, no, we're not. Because we had CIPC in here. We
That's a
talked
general
about-
fund.
but-
That's a
But
budget.
here's the whole thing, Brooke, is that there are guidelines as to what is permissible to be funded by the CPA.
I
Okay?
understand, Jim.
And this fits in, and it doesn't matter if it's a school, a library, a private backyard, this fits in.
I'm just telling you, when we sold this to the town and stood up at town meeting, we
Yep.
said it would not go to things such as equipment for schools, driveways, bleachers, fire trucks. That's not what we would use it for. And I get it. I said I'm going to vote for it. Paul's saying that we can vote for it. I'm going to do it. I'm saying to you, we should be very cognizant of the fact that we sold it one way and we're starting to leak it in another way. So
I
With all due
disagree that
respect,
was
this
all-
isn't to
Hang
fund
on, hang on.
equipment.
He had his hand up first.
it's not to
So
fund equipment.
It's not to fund
What throws this into a
equipment.
different category is
Hold on.
accessibility.
A playground structure is not equipment. It's a structure. The rubberized surface is not equipment. We're not buying a truck. We're buying, it's a capital expense that goes to the building for the use of the community. I hear what you're saying, Brooke.
Right.
But
you just
this
said
isn't part of that.
I get it, and I'm not going to say again, two problems with that. You just said it's a capital project for the town.
They all are.
So that's why they're not eligible.
So what would you
And
fund then?
Hold
That's
on,
not
hold on,
true.
hold on.
Hold on, no, I would like an
Let me
answer.
just-
What
let me
would
just-
you
hang
fund,
on,
Brooke?
hang on.
All right, everybody stop.
down.
No, everybody stop right now. Everybody stop right now. Brooke, ask your question.
I did. I was saying.
Oh, everybody was yelling.
I know, okay. So I was saying that, and the very fact that when you came, half of it got funded by the school or the town. You came with a project worth X amount, and then it got funded. So that means the town funds it. And all you're doing, and I'm voting for this thing. But again, what you've done is you've pushed up your funding, is all you've done. You said you don't have enough money this year, so you're gonna get half from us. If we didn't give you the money, you wouldn't just put it down. You'd have to figure out some way to do it, or you'd fund it in 2 spots.
Mr. Chair,
So-
if I may respond.
Okay, we'll go to Evan, let Evan had his hand up first.
It's a little bit of a fallacy that you've got going on there. So, everything that is anything is a capital project. They all have different funding sources. So one of the things that you do when you build a real capital budget for a town that has a $70 million nut is you take every single thing, you categorize it, you capture it, and you would assign a funding source. That's how we're gonna do it. Literally everything that comes before you that is a town project is going to be on the capital plan. Everything can be funded. It's just a matter of how much you want to ask the taxpayers to pay on top of what they're already paying. So, if you don't want to fund anything that's operational, right, anything that's part of a budget, you'll collect your CPA money, we'll raise the tax levy, and people will just continually pay more for projects that were eligible for CPA.
I agree with everything you said except the last statement.
Okay.
That everything else is true.
What's wrong with the last statement?
Because I don't think those things should be funded by CPA. When we had the CPA, you have a town budget, and you've said it twice now, and it's exactly what people in the audience were saying. We were pulling a scam on them, because what they were saying is exactly what you're saying, is that what you're really doing is not raising our taxes. What you're doing is telling us you're doing the CPA fund for other little projects like boat ramps and fixing the weights and measures and fixing Hassanet, things that the town would really not get involved in. That's what CPA is for. No, that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're taking that money so you don't have to raise taxes, and you're gonna come back for it later to fund town capital projects. So everything you said, I totally agree with you, except the last thing.
Okay.
You would not come back here for those projects, because boat ramps and all the rest of the stuff you wouldn't have to do.
Okay, but let me ask you this to your
And this is
question.
something I'm voting for, so yeah, go
I
ahead.
know,
Go ahead,
I can't
go
believe
ahead,
it. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
If the CPA clearly states that programs like this are allowable to be funded, how do you still say that that's wrong?
Well, I don't see that, Stuart. That's why I asked about that Stewart letter. I didn't see anything that says.
Well, no,
things
it's in
like
the
this.
act. It's in the act. It talks about it. There's examples given. You can go, as I'm sure has been done here before, because we were talking about other places, but you can go and you can look up stuff like this, and it's there. It's like, you can Google this stuff.
Well, I guess I can respond to you saying to you, as Stewart, whoever Stewart is, says, different towns run it different ways where
Okay.
they choose to.
All
When
right.
we sold it, it was not that sale. And so if maybe other towns said, we're gonna supplement the budget, I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me. Why don't
right.
you just raise taxes?
Okay,
Evan said exactly the thing that people were arguing about.
Okay.
Just raise our taxes.
okay.
I just have one question.
Yes, yeah.
What year did you pass CPA?
2002.
We were one of the first.
2002?
Yeah.
I couldn't even drink the drink that I need to have after this meeting.
Well, that doesn't, I mean,
voted for it. There you go.
I mean, listen, last time we were, yeah, anyway.
No, I'm just busting.
But
That kind of hurt a little.
I'm
some
just
of us-
saying.
I think I was pregnant that year.
Some of us were there, and it took a while to to get people to agree to this.
Yeah,
And there was a
absolutely.
lot of fighting on the floor, and this was a main thing. And you can think I'm nuts, but what town meeting said and how we sold it, I stood up there and sold it that way. So then to turn around and have someone look at me, if they're still alive, and say, you said this would never happen, well, I'm gonna say I went down swinging, I guess, except you threw a whole monkey wrench saying we can do it. So I'm not against,
Can I
listen,
interject with just, so it was, I think, around 2014, 2016, that the act was actually changed. You
Okay.
couldn't, you didn't, when it first passed, you couldn't rehabilitate playgrounds. And a lot of work was done to change that, because the cities in the Commonwealth were like, what the hell's the open space reserve?
Exactly.
Because we have no open space to buy. And, we have to buy the land in order to create the playground. And that was when the coalition actually did a lot of the work to change the act. And I think that's when we started to see,
okay. I mean,
this start to
whatever, I guess
happen,
I'm
but-
just a little nervous
I guess
when
what I really
CIPC
wanna move
comes in
along
and has a
before
list of
the
stuff and
season
we look at it.
changes
That's
again.
the only problem. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Are we good?
I don't
All
know.
right, we'll come back and we'll vote on this in a little while.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Don't go away, it's almost there. There's a change on the digitizing town records project, Joanne?
Well, Paul I spoke with Candy today.
I can give a follow-up on that. So we reached out to the coalition on this because we had never been approached on it. And the request actually didn't specify what documents they were going to do. And, you know, obviously when we talked about it last month, our understanding would be that, you know, we could only support it for the historic documents, that you wouldn't be able to use CPA funds for just regular town records. But one of the questions that we had is, you know, does this fall under the realm of preservation, digitizing records? And they actually get a lot of questions about this at the coalition, and it really doesn't preserve the documents. And in a way, I was thinking, oh yeah, it preserves it, because if they're digitized, people don't have to touch the actual document, so you're helping to preserve that document. But from a legal standpoint, that hasn't flown, and that decision from the DOR has remained unchanged, and the coalition hasn't changed their stance at all in years on that. The good news is they gave us a little bit of a tidbit about the fact that the state has a source for the town to use to get records digitized. They support this, and it's through the Boston Public Library. So I gave that contact to Candy so that she knew that. And one other thing that came out of this is that, and it really doesn't play into this application, but as we all know, she has another project ongoing with us for historical preservation of actual historic documents, which has been ongoing for a number of years. Apparently, in order to dot our I's and cross our T's, they should be getting validation through the Historical Commission that the documents that they want to preserve are in fact considered historical. It's just a matter of them going to them, presenting what it is they want to do, getting that validation in writing, so that we have that to prove that those documents
Is
are.
this going to be withdrawn?
So the long and short is, yes, Candy said she's going to withdraw this application. She's going to look
Okay.
at other opportunities for it. And,
Thank you.
and she's going to work with John Stevens as our historical commission rep to figure
Very
out
good.
how to move forward on the other project.
Also, I think the lesson here is to take the coalition off your speed dial. The extension of the weights and measures project, now that's just because they can't set it up yet, right?
Correct, the electricity hasn't been set up in the library yet, and this is probably the last project where you'd have to do a sunset extension because of the new wording that you
Right.
chose to go with going forward.
Okay, so
So-
that's,
On that one, this might be a question for John, if you can hear me over the owl. Is the current listing in our warrant article draft, which we'll get to, but says the sunset extension is until June 30th, 2023. When are they expecting to be able to move the weights and measures cabinet itself?
Right now, the problem is, we thought we were gonna be able to move it. I think the electrical work has been done, but to do the electrical work, and I think there was other electrical work, and I think that's part of the problem. It's not just the electricity for the weights and measures cabinet damaged a lot of plaster. And so I think they got a bid for plaster for maybe more than, because it's not that much room or much linear footage that needs to be repaired. And the estimate to do that work, it seems like, was $2,000 to $3,000. So I asked Joanne to check into that. We have just enough, I think, to pay for that, but then you don't have enough to move the cabinet. So I think they were gonna either separate the bid so you could see what applied to the damage for the cabinet and where somewhere else, or just to get a second or third bid to get a more price competitive bid. So the hope is to get it done. It's just like something else keeps coming up.
So even though the plaster's damaged, it's impossible to move it into place and have it just moved aside for the day or so that they're going to be fixing the plaster?
It's huge. Have you seen it? It's huge. You just can't move it aside. And with all the weights in it, that's even more problematic. I think once you move it, you want to move it and leave it.
So,
and they really need full access. It would be, have to move it out for the workmen to get in there and do their work. So it would be almost like moving it twice. You'd have to pay somebody. I don't know if the town staff would want to get involved with that. That's a pretty tricky thing, and they're overworked as it is, trying to do what everybody's asking to do.
Okay. Thank you. So let's move forward. And we are at item number 10. So let me tell you how we're going to handle this, is that I am going to read the warrant article. Now, as you know, the chairman cannot make a motion. So I will read the warrant article, and then what I'll look for is for someone to make a motion, and then someone to second it. Then I will ask for a discussion. Barring any discussion, I will do a roll call vote on the vote for that particular warrant article. Yes,
just as a point of
order.
Suggestion, I guess, I think it's very likely the board will be happy, to me, it's very likely the board will be happy with the first 4 warrant articles we have listed, so we can roll them into one vote. That would save some time since it's all roll call votes.
If that is part of the,
Just do them. You do them separately.
you want to do them
We
separately?
would have been through 3 of them already.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so a number of them don't have the dollar amount written in them yet, because that's always up for grabs, right?
Yeah.
Nor does it have the funding source. So when you do the motion, you have to put in the dollar amount, and maybe in the motion, some wording along the lines of, with the funding source to be determined by the treasurer.
Okay, here's what we're going to do.
Fix the account.
Here's what we're going to do, all right? Whoever makes the motion is going to make the motion, and then as you do the extraordinary work that you do, you can fill in all of those others, so we don't take a half an hour on each one. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you. So first is the CPC
Chairman, I
affordable.
move to see if the town, do you want me to read out the whole?
Well, you didn't even listen to what I said at the beginning,
I
did you?
did. You can't make a
I
motion.
gave
You
that a
can't
lot
make
of
motion.
thought, Brooke.
All right, go ahead.
All right.
You're looking for a
To see
motion
if-
to CPC.
All right, I'm looking for a motion to see if the town will transfer back dollars to the CPA Affordable Housing Reserve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
That motion was unclear. I would like to, it just move dollars. That doesn't really help us.
How about, I'd like to make a motion to transfer the Affordable Housing Reserve to the Affordable Housing Trust.
You want the number?
Do we, at this point here, do we need the
Yeah, the
number?
number's in
Can
here.
she
The
put in
number's
the
in here.
numbers?
The
when
number's
we're
in
on,
this.
Justin?
Why don't we just read what it says?
Yeah, okay.
I make a motion to see if the town will vote to transfer $69,824 from CPA Affordable Housing Reserve account to the Grafton Affordable Housing Trust, with such funds be used in accordance with CPA guidelines for community housing.
Okay, the motion was made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Kristen Belanger.
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock?
Just like this.
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger.
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget.
Aye.
Brooke Paget, aye. Paul Scarlett.
Aye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens.
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney, aye. Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood, aye. That is moved along unanimous. The next one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, CPC to vote from reserve fund, from the Community Preservation Fund's annual revenue in the amounts of fiscal year 2023 administrative expense $24,000, Historical Resources Reserve, 75,930. Affordable Housing Reserve, 75,930. Open Space Reserve, 75,930. And FY 2023 budgeted reserves, 507,508.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
These numbers will be amended when the town gives us an update on the expected state match.
Right, so moved. I amend my motion to say that.
Thank you. All right, Christian Belanger.
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock.
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger.
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget.
Aye.
Brooke Paget is aye. Paul Scarlett.
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens.
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. And Justin Wood.
Aye.
All right. Justin Wood is aye. So this will move along as well unanimously. The
Mr.
Pell
Chairman,
Farm bond, go.
Move that we appropriate the sum of $64,500 from the Open Space and Recreational Reserve for the purpose of making the 14th of 20 interest and principal payments of the $1.2 million bond issued for the purchase of Pell Farm.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Christian Belanger.
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock.
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger.
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget.
Aye.
Brooke Paget is aye. Paul Scarlett.
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens.
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye. It's carried unanimously. So we move along to the Grafton Townhouse bond payment.
I'm going to recuse myself on this vote.
Okay, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of approximately $74,100 from the Historical Reserve for the purpose of making the 8th of 20 interest and principal payments of the $1.1 million bond issued for the restoration of the Grafton Townhouse, or take any other action relative thereto. Can someone make that motion?
I so move with the one correction of it's 1.2, not 1.1 million.
It says 1.1.
Shows 1.2 on mine.
This is 1.2 on mine as well.
1.2 is Pell, 1.1 is
Oh,
Townhouse.
we're looking at the wrong one. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I
Did the same
I'm-
thing.
You know, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what are the chances that Gallagher made a mistake?
So I move for the Grafton Townhouse bond payment with 1.1 million as
Pretty
stated.
high.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I am going to recuse myself from this vote as well.
Okay, thank you. All righty, here we go. Christian Belanger?
Aye.
Christian Belanger is aye. Sandy Brock?
Aye.
Sandy Brock is aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget is recused. Paul Scarlett
Recused.
is recused. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
Richard Whitney, aye. And Justin Wood?
Aye.
Justin Wood, aye. I declare the motion carried. Now we move along to the Weights and Measures Cabinet Restoration Sunset. And I understand that all we're really, okay, well, go ahead. Do you want to be the reader again?
The vote, the town will extend the sunset provisions to expire on June 30, 2022 for previously approved $10,000 to restore the 1848 Howard and Davis scale and cabinet, and then to be displayed in an agreed-upon location. Well, okay, we're just sunset. So moved. Thought John might do this one, but
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I thought we had approved the ability for this committee by vote to extend sunset provisions without the need for town meeting, so.
But I believe that this one here was viable prior to when we made that change. Is that right, Joanne?
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm watching the cat.
Yeah,
Yes, so what you as a committee voted to, going forward, put language in all of the warrant articles, you'll see that in the other ones coming up. where it says unless the CPC by majority vote extends the deadline. Weights and measures was prior to that.
Thank you for the clarification.
That was what I was gonna say.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Kristen Belanger?
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock?
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher, aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger, aye. Brooke Paget?
Aye.
Brooke Paget, aye. Paul Scarlett?
Aye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
Richard Whitney, aye. Justin Wood?
Aye.
Justin Wood, aye. The thing is passed unanimously. Okay, for the playground, South Grafton Playground, you want to read that?
See the town vote to appropriate a sum, or is he,
It would be 135
35.
or 45?
135? Is that correct?
I want to get the right number.
I think it's,
135.
135.
the CPC vote $135,000 from the Community Preservation Act, from budget reserves, for funds to be expended by June 30th, 2024, for South Grafton Elementary School Playground Accessibility Project.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, how will the blank be filled out?
The sum, that's
so this is where I had asked, so
135,000.
Ken, are you comfortable with $135,000 from the Community Preservation Act fiscal year 2023 budgeted
Correct, I
reserve?
was asking, yeah, I was
And then
asking,
that blank will be the name of that project.
okay, yeah, I'm good.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Kristen Belanger.
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock.
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger.
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget.
Aye.
Brooke Paget is aye. Paul Scarlett.
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens.
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye. That is carried unanimously. The next is the South Grafton Community House repainting project proposal.
Mr. Chairman, vote
We
for the,
renamed it.
Well, go.
We're calling that something else, remember?
The exterior restoration and
Okay,
repainting,
the South Grafton Community House project. How's that?
and how much money was that?
50.
50,000.
The CPC to transfer from Community Preservation Act for $50,000 with the sums to be expended by June 30, 2023 for the South Grafton exterior project proposal.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
The funding source for that will be the historical reserve.
Okay, thank you. Kristen?
Just for clarification again, was the understanding that Evan was gonna come back with a new proposal, new wording for what exactly it is the funding's being spent on?
Yes, yes, he's providing that to Joanne, yes.
So
To
we
be,
vote before we see that?
Yeah, but we know what he's going to say. It's just a question that we will then have it in hand. We know the amounts. We know that it's,
Percentage-wise,
yes.
to the type of work that's
Correct.
being done? Okay.
Any other
Please don't
discussion?
go on, I want to wait 1 second. I can't find that name now that we came up with.
The
Is
name,
that really important right
It
now?
is, well, I
actually
want to
is.
make sure,
you're talking about the name of it?
It's the exterior restoration and repainting.
thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Kristen Belanger.
Aye.
Kristen Belanger.
John has
Oh,
his
John has a
Haven't been
question.
recognized.
Yeah, John is looking, he raised his.
Oh, I didn't see that hand when I looked up, John, sorry.
Is there a sign? I don't believe there is, a CPC sign at the South Grafton Community House. And should we add $6,000 to this for a sign? I believe there's not a CPC sign, but another identifying sign.
think a plaque would be more appropriate myself.
Well, for this project, it would be, but we've put like over 200 grand into this building already with no sign.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
We've put over 200 grand in this already, so, yeah, that'd be appropriate. Would you be amiable to increasing? Thank you. So we're gonna make a jump to
56?
56,000. I already forgot. Yeah, 56,000.
Can I ask one, I apologize. I have a typo in here. The sunset should be 2024, not 23.
Okay.
So, change my motion.
What?
I'll circle back to me after we vote on this one, Jim.
Okay. All right, any other discussion?
Sorry, I have to bring it up again. I'm still not completely comfortable on the percentage thing. We don't know the percentage. We know, and it's 88,000 is what the full estimate was. We know that the original guesstimate was that it was 20%. Evan, are you saying that you're comfortable that the percentage is going to be significantly higher than 20%?
Yeah, so I'll spend some time tomorrow over there with Mr. Berger and recheck everything, but it'll be, I mean, I was answering Stuart kind of on the fly, so I'll drill down a little
Okay.
farther.
Thank you.
Thank you, that makes me
Any
feel
other
more comfortable.
discussion?
Yeah,
Yes,
This is Sandy. Could you just repeat what that answer was? Because I could not hear him.
The answer was yes, he's gonna take care of it. We're all set.
He's going to meet with Mr. Berger and go over it again and come back with an accurate percentage, which he feels confident is going to be significantly higher than the 20% that he
Thank you.
originally thought.
Okay, Ken?
Thank you.
So, John just suggested that we, in light of the, more than $200,000 the committee is already, the Grafton CPA has contributed towards this townhouse in the past without any acknowledgement. John suggested that we add to this project a sign to acknowledge the CPA contribution.
Right.
And so if that's going to be the case, then the proposal that Evan provides has got to cite that.
Done. He's got it.
So-
We're all set.
And and John suggested $6,000, which to me, that's one of the granite post wood signs.
Okay, so
Is that-
is that good?
It's good,
More?
I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's what we're talking about.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
A granite post sign.
The granite post,
So- Like
you
the
know,
one at,
the same as all the other ones.
Yeah.
right, like at Silver Lake.
Yep. Yes, Justin?
Just a very brief
No, it's
comment
like-
on some people's reservations about not knowing what Evan is going to hand us as a committee before we vote tonight, is that should any member of this committee have a concern prior to town meeting, they can ask the chair through Joanne or through you to call a meeting, even if it's 30 minutes before town meeting, to take a vote as a committee to rescind our support of a project.
We can
it
do
still-
that, and
It
it
still
just-
goes to the town at that
Right.
moment, but we,
I understand, but
Us-
just so you know, is that it's routine for this committee that, that we have an announcement, or what the hell are we talking about? Proposal, what is it?
I don't know, an agenda? What are you talking
Agenda.
about?
We have an agenda at 15 minutes before the start of town meeting.
Yes.
So that's yes.
Yeah,
So that, yeah, that'll be there.
I'm comfortable with what Evan has shared, so
That's
I'm-
great.
I'm good.
That's absolutely wonderful. Okay, oh, yes, Bill.
Rich,
Rich, who, I don't care.
you talked about the sign I just want to make this for $6,000. Is that enough to put one of these post signs in?
Yes.
And do we have these at all the places that we have, or do we have a plaque on the wall? Which is easier to do or cheaper to do? I mean, trying to save money, no offense.
Yep, no, historically, what's happened is that where it is feasible, that we're going with these kind of signs with the posts so that they'll be there forever.
Okay.
Or at least until someone hits them with their car on the way to the fireworks.
Right, and there's quite a few of them out there. There's
Yeah.
one at Ekbal Landing.
Okay.
There's one at Pell Farm. There's one at the, that Fisherville Park.
Riverview.
The Riverview Park. And
I don't want to prolong this, but
Yeah, that's fine. I just asked a simple question if they're all the
there,
same.
where you gonna
That's all.
put it?
And then what we're gonna do now is say, Kristen?
Aye.
Kristen Belanger is aye. Sandy Brock?
Aye.
Sandy Brock is aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget?
Nay.
Brooke Paget is nay. Paul Scarlett?
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
No relation to Bill, is aye. Justin Wood?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried, except for one. You do the math at home.
Still carried.
Still carried. Okay, the UUSGU,
Mr. Chair?
okay, I just want to see whether or not Richard remembers what UUSGU stood for.
No, I don't.
didn't either. Yes.
So, Joanne did mention about the sunset being,
I did the same thing on this one.
yep, I was just gonna ask that, was this
I did that on the
2024.
last one too, yes.
Yep.
I was on a roll.
And what's
Sorry.
the amount?
No, the amount's 15,000 and the sunset should be 2024.
15?
They're only asking for 15,000. Their project is 18,000. They're asking for
Okay,
15.
Mr. Chair, I move the CPC appropriate $15,000 from Community Preservation Act undesignated fund to be expended by June 30th, 2024 on the UUSGU Phase 2 Universal Accessibility Project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
We need to change the fund source from the undesignated fund to the FY 2023 budgeted reserve.
FY
FY
2023
2023
budgeted,
budgeted reserve.
budget. Reserve. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Kristen Belanger?
aye.
Kristen Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock?
Aye.
Sandy Brock, aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget?
Aye.
Brooke Paget is aye. Paul Scarlett?
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. Justin Wood?
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye, and that is carried unanimously. All right, the digitalization,
You don't need to vote.
We're
to
not doing
drop
that.
it.
we're not going
withdrawn.
to, we're not going to vote on that. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls,
I'm
children
sorry.
of all ages, what?
And Ken, you mentioned that the numbers for the CPC reserve article will change?
Right, we're getting a new, we'll have a
Estimate?
new estimate of the state match.
So how do you want, I'm gonna turn these into William. Do you want me to tell him these numbers will change? Do you want me to leave them blank?
Leave them blank,
Okay.
because
So-
there's too much room for error.
So I can leave the administrative expenses at 24, because you always do that,
Correct.
right? But the reserve numbers, I'll leave blank.
Yes,
Evan?
and the budgeted reserve.
We need to take a vote, right?
Sorry, no, don't leave them blank, put a sum of money.
Sum of money, oh. Oh,
Thank
wait.
you.
Okay.
Blanks are different.
And then it'll go in at the motion. Got it. Thank you.
So that is going to appear then?
A sum of money will appear, and then what you'll do is Mary Lauria can provide the numbers for the motion that's read on town meeting floor.
All right, so we want to vote on that then?
We should probably take a quick motion to say we're gonna
Okay,
amend.
which I was
move
ready.
that-
Ready?
I-
Go. Mother of God, yes.
I move that we amend the motion as discussed.
Second.
Motion made and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none.
Could you please, I did not hear that motion at all.
Justin, would you repeat it slowly?
I move that we amend the previous motion for the CPC warrant article reserve amounts to be as we'd previously discussed, just now.
Thank you.
And thank you for letting us know when you can't hear. We
I
appreciate
just
that.
can't vote on something I don't know anything about, so
Why not? John's
you for,
been doing that all night.
accommodating us.
John said, what? Okay. All right, motion made and seconded. Did we vote? We didn't vote.
No, we did not.
All right, Christian Belanger.
Aye.
Christian Belanger, aye. Sandy Brock.
Aye.
Sandy Brock is aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger.
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget.
Aye.
Brooke Paget is aye. Paul Scarlett.
Aye.
Paul Scarlett is aye. John Stevens.
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. And Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye, and it is carried. So we can check off number 10, and we have our, what we decide, what we have determined are acceptable to us going forward to town meeting. So now, item 11, this came up, and this kind of goes back to the way I started the meeting. And the reason that I wanted to start it that way is that I really figured that I wouldn't have much of a brain left at this point in time. So with the understanding of what I had said initially, there is a discussion, and what I'll do is limit the discussion initially to the board, excuse me, about regarding CPC membership. The way that it stands right now is that there are designated members that go with, John, you're the Historical Society, is that right?
Commission.
Historic Commission?
Yes.
Historical
yes, he is.
Commission?
Yep.
And Kristen, you're with the Recreational? I'm with the Grafton Housing Authority.
And this is Sandy, I'm with Conservation.
Sandy, I was looking around for Sandy. She hasn't been here all day. She's over there. Sandy is with Conservation, and there's one more.
Justin is with the planning board.
Justin was with the Planning Board, right there. So we have those people that are in the Mass General Law, subsequently in the Grafton bylaws that have the appointment of a member of that group to the CPC. That leaves 4 positions that are, excuse me, that are people can apply for, and then based on the determination of the select board, they will select who should fill that vacancy based on those who have applied for that. Now, having said that, these aren't they don't fall due every year, all right? So they're spread out so that we don't all of a sudden stand a possibility of having 4 brand-new members to the CPC. So this year, for example, the person whose term is up this year is the lovely and talented Ken Holberger, our treasurer, okay? And then there are others, Paul, Brooke, rather.
There's 2 people in 1 year.
There's only one person up for reappointment this year, and that is Ken.
Ken, right.
I was reappointed last year, and Richard was appointed.
Right.
Okay,
So you're at
so that leaves
2024.
Brooke.
And Brooks, 2023.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, how do you folks feel about that? Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and if you will indulge me, I'd like to take a little time to go through them.
Okay,
So I hope you won't cut me off, because it's an important topic.
I'll only do that if you piss me off, so go ahead.
So we have been requested by the Select Board to consider amending the bylaws to have a representative from the affordable housing. So instead of having 5 permanent seats for which there's no expiration that are appointed from certain areas within, or committees within town, we would have 6, and remove one of our at-large seats. Today, we have 4. This would make it 3. And this is being promulgated by the fact that there's been several meetings joint meetings between the Affordable Housing Trust and the Select Board, discussing how the Select Board can help them to move forward their initiatives. And one of the things they have discussed was getting on this committee, getting representation on this committee. So I want to give a little history about our involvement with AHT. I'm going to say AHT instead of Affordable Housing Trust because it doesn't roll off the tongue. We've recognized the need for, and we've worked to maintain a connection with AHT since its formation in 2010. In fact, because that is one of our main tenants, affordable housing, we have 4 different funding areas that we can support: affordable housing, historic preservation, open space, and recreation. So that is one of the 4, and clearly, we want to have their involvement. To that end, in its initial year of formation, CPC put forth and town meeting approved a warrant article to fund the hiring of a consultant to assist AHT in getting off the ground. Also, since AHT's inception, CPC has annually brought to town meeting a warrant article for the transfer to AHT of the yearly 10% affordable housing allotment that CPA requires us to set aside for affordable housing purposes. This is done proactively by this committee rather than requiring AHT to follow the application process required of other groups requesting CPA funding, as we have gone through tonight. This is done to allow them to build a nest egg of CPA funds upon which they can quickly react to project opportunities that otherwise might be missed if they had to go through our twice-a-year application process. Also, since their inception, CPC has annually invited AHT to meet and discuss how they have used their CPC funding over the prior 12 months. This is really done not only so that we can know what they're working on and be able to position ourselves to assist them with anything they may have coming up, but also an important piece of it is to provide transparency of their use of taxpayer funds. So they need, because we are giving them those funds, we don't have oversight of them. If they don't come back to us and tell us how they spend them, we have no idea how that has taken place. Excuse me. It is worth noting that the AHT has not accepted this invitation in several years and has, through February of 2022, has not provided any documentation of CPA funding being expended. This is the first time in my recollection, and I've been on this committee for at least a dozen years, that they've actually provided funding information to us. And I will also point out that the total of the funds that we have provided to them is well over $700,000 over these years. In 2020, CPC took the additional step of making AHT aware of the ability for CPA funds to be leveraged to provide rental assistance. We talked about how that was such a wonderful thing. Well, the idea for doing that came from this committee through our secretary. So we found out about it, brought that idea to them, and they ran with it, which was great because it was a great program. It's a great use of CPA funds. It was an unusual use that we brought to them. So I will say that with the sole exception of those 2 things that I've talked about, the original consultant that we helped them with in 2010 and the idea that we brought to them for the rental assistance, that is the only times that they have come to us for any additional funding at all. So it isn't that we don't want to work with Affordable Housing Trust. We all see the importance of it and want to work with them. And there are ways for them to do that. So as we consider the Select Board's request for input on adding a standing AHT seat on CPC, I think it's also important that we look at Mass General Law, which I did, and it is supportable for us or the Select Board to decide to make that amendment, take away one of our at-large seats and put another seat on there. There isn't anything in the Mass General Law that would prevent them from doing that. But it's also pertinent to consider the potential implications of such a change. Under the existing structure, each of the three funding categories, historic preservation, affordable housing, open space, and recreation, has representation via the existing bylaw, i.e. Historical Commission, Housing Authority, what you just went through. All of those areas are already represented. Also, by virtue of the planning board's charge, their representation provides additional support to all four of the funding categories. So you have equity within each of our funding categories. You have a representative from a committee that provides that representation. This is also then supplemented through the 4 at-large seats. These seats are important for ensuring that general citizenry, not easy for me to say, is provided the opportunity for input on how CPA funding is allocated. Appointing an additional permanent position to AHT would create an inequity in the representation of the 4 CPA funding categories: affordable housing, historic preservation, open space, and recreation, by providing affordable housing interests with 2 permanent representatives, whereas all the other would maintain only 1. Perhaps the most important consideration against this bylaw change comes down to this final point. Stuart Saganor from the Coalition for Community Preservation explained that regarding the importance of not eliminating at-large seats on CPC. This is a quote from him. "It further takes CPA away from its goal, which is to have all 4 at-large slots from the general community. You already have 5 town boards represented on your CPC. The at-large slots are supposed to be the chance for general town citizens to get input into CPA. In their view, the coalition, taking away an at-large slot further concentrates the power in the hands of town government and not the community at large." So I would add, there are alternate paths to enhancing Affordable Housing Trust's involvement with CPC. They could and should leverage their housing authority representative, who is the representative that is most appropriate to meet with them. Jim's role is to have their interests represented and help to guide them through the process. And Jim has publicly offered this support on multiple occasions. He did it the other night at the select board meeting. He's done it at countless other meetings. He did it again tonight. Affordable housing can also seek appointment to an at-large seat when one becomes available. Note, such an opportunity existed last June when Eric Swenson sought appointment to CPC but was passed over by the select board in favor of another applicant. It would be hoped that if such an appointment consideration were to arise again, that CPC would be provided an opportunity to offer to the select board their input before they were to render a decision. This was not something that was allowed by select board during last June's reappointment process. As pertinent aspects of a sitting member's role on a committee can have a direct bearing on the functioning of the committee, such input should be weighed in when making these decisions to avoid the potential pitfalls that could otherwise occur. So the bottom line, creating a new standing membership position for AHT is not recommended or necessary to ensure AHT's inclusion in the CPA funding process. AHT and many other groups have successfully received CPA funding without the need for a standing member on the committee. There are existing mechanisms AHT is not currently taking advantage of that would enhance the awareness of CPC of their needs. This can be achieved without going to the extreme of a bylaw change, which would actually serve to create an imbalance in the permanent member representation across CPC's 4 funding categories and serve to limit participation of the general citizenry in the CPA process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Justin?
So, before I begin to respond to your many points, I do want to just note that I did see Mr. Spinney walk back in, very good timing, and we do have on Zoom multiple members of his committee, Dan Kusher, Edward Prisby, and Eric Swenson, if he wanted to.
That'll be my decision if it comes to it.
Mr. Chairman?
Could I?
No, he's got the floor. Go.
But
You're next.
so, to your points, you mentioned how we continually work to remain connected to the Affordable Housing Trust and to know what's going on there. And with everything that they're doing and with our money. Tonight's discussion really does not shed that as a fact. Brooke Paget did not understand just about anything what they were doing. He was so confused about GSX at Upton Street versus Pine Street. As just one minor example of everything that Mr. Spinney said. And you yourself, Paul, had mentioned that this is your first time in recollection that we were ever given anything about what the Affordable Housing Trust has been using money for. And that does not play to the narrative that we've worked closely with them. The other thing to mention is that representation exists, as you said, for affordable housing. We do have Jim on the Housing Authority, but as was even said at the previous select board meeting that I watched, the Housing Authority has no funding that the CPC can provide. There's nothing the Housing Authority does that the CPC can provide funding for. If I'm incorrect, I'll take a...
You are.
But, and for the inequity, the part of the reason that the Housing Authority is on the CPC here is because there was no Affordable Housing Trust when this bylaw passed.
That's not true.
Okay.
Can I speak now?
All right, go.
So the last comment, we'll start with that. That isn't true. In the Mass General Law, the Housing Authority is named as a representative of it. It is true that affordable housing didn't exist when we were founded, but since the beginning of Mass General Law for CPA, it spelled out Housing Authority, not affordable housing. No one here is against having more involvement with affordable housing. I want to have more involvement. What I was saying was there are mechanisms for that that aren't being taken advantage of by them and partially on our end too. We could do a better job of reaching out to them. My point is that you do not need to go to the extreme of a bylaw change, which is going to create inequity in the representation on this committee and reduce the amount of citizen input that you would otherwise have with the at-large seats.
So, as you say,
No,
I wasn't done, Jim, when you pants fast enough.
okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So you did say existing mechanisms now multiple times, but along with the idea that we've worked closely with the Affordable Housing Trust, it does not sound like that actually has been taking place, because if there's existing mechanisms that are not being taken advantage of that is identifiable, why have they not been taken advantage of? Are we really working closely or are we not? And then, for your mentioning there's an inequity, but I believe I could be wrong, it might not have been, you might have been one of the other members that were at that select board meeting, explicitly said you do not want to lose the Housing Authority member, but your conversation just now sounds to me like you're advocating for replacing the Housing Authority for the Affordable Housing Trust if people want the Affordable Housing Trust on here. The other point you mentioned is you cited a conversation or an email or whatever from Stuart. I have not seen this email to my recollection. The piece that is quite confusing to me about that email is Stuart talks about there being 4 community at-large seats that are integral to the CPC. There's no thing in the CPA that says it has to be a 9-member body with 4 at-large seats. Many communities have less than 4 at-large seats. Some, I believe, don't have any at-large seats. And they just have a 5-member body. There is nothing that is inherently integral about 4 at-large seats.
So Mass General Law requires representation of the 5 bodies that I mentioned: Planning Board, Historical Commission,
Recreation.
Housing Authority. Well, it doesn't really say Recreation. The law actually says Parks Commission, but we don't, I believe, have a Parks Commission. And so in those situations where you don't have a committee, that was spelled out in the law, you can choose one that fills the void. So if we didn't have a housing authority, then we could very easily appoint affordable housing as that representative. But the law spells out that we have to have housing authority. So I am not advocating to change housing authority because we can't change housing authority. They have to be on it. What I am trying to say is that we need to have equity within the funds, which is what is spelled out in the law, is to have that representation. So different towns may have less than 4 at-large seats. Our bylaws spelled out 4 at-large seats. And as I said before, it is certainly within the purview of the select board to bring a bylaw change to town meeting to change those at-large seats. The point I'm trying to make, and the point that was made by Mr. Saganor, which by the way was made in reply to a situation that happened just this past fall, where the select board was trying to change our membership again, or previously, to put on a Veterans Affairs, and I'm not sure if that's the correct name for the committee, but a representative from Veterans Affairs on the committee. And that quote was gotten from him in response to our request for clarification on that whole situation. So you have seen it before, you just don't remember because it was it was a while ago. I think I hesitated to go under this additional piece, but if you will allow me, I think a little walk down recent history lane is worth everyone understanding here. So this situation where the select board is bringing this recommendation is the latest in a series of ostensibly partisan efforts of the current select board to alter the makeup of CPC. Within the past year, the following examples have occurred. June of 2021, the select board implemented revised appointment guidelines for all volunteer committees under their purview. Under the new guidelines, all sitting committees, committee members seeking reappointment must now interview for their position along with other interested candidates. No committee input was sought out during the development of these process changes, nor were the committees allowed to provide input on the contributions and qualifications of their impacted members until the night of. You were allowed to speak about the qualities of the candidate that you would be looking for. That was the only input that we were allowed, and that was at that meeting. In addition, the communication to those who were impacted by the need to be interviewed were only provided that communication the day before the interviews were to take place. The end result was that out of 5 committees with contested seats, only CPC did not have all standing members reappointed. Furthermore, these reappointment decisions were made without any discussion on the part of the select board members present, giving the distinct impression that the outcome had been decided before the interviews even took place. Jen Thomas, who was a former select board chair and charter CPC member with 18 years of CPA knowledge, was the sole individual seeking reappointment on CPC that was not, actually on any committee within the town that was not approved. Interestingly, the individual chosen over her had been blocked from appointment to CPC the prior year, based on the assertion that their application was received after the deadline. Ms. Thomas was the chair of the select board at that time, and Mr. Paget was ultimately appointed to that at-large position. Move forward to September of 2021, so just this past September. Select board members put forth a warrant article for fall of 2021 town meeting proposing to revise town bylaws pertaining to CPC membership. The existing bylaws call for CPC membership to include standing representation, no term expiration, from the following committees: Conservation Commission, Historical Commission, Housing Authority, Parks Commission, and Planning Board, as well as 4 at-large members. Select person Colleen Roy put forth what she advised was an unsolicited idea to replace an at-large seat with a permanent standing representation from Veterans Affairs. Again, no input was sought from CPC regarding this matter, and the committee was only made aware of it in late September when it was noticed among their posted agenda items. CPC had to scramble to research this matter to determine its appropriateness within the parameters of the CPA. Based on what was determined, a letter was sent by CPC to the Select Board and Finance Committee, recommending this article be passed over at town meeting based on the following. The warrant article presented was a solution without a problem, since no one from the committee had the community, had requested this change. That such a position does not align with any of the 4 CPA funding areas: open space, recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. That CPC already had 2 veterans among its members, one of whom also happens to sit on the Veterans Affairs Committee. That it would serve to diminish community involvement in CPC by eliminating an at-large seat. Perhaps the most important consideration against this bylaw change was the final item that Stuart Saginaw from the Coalition for Community Preservation explained in his reply to our request for input on this matter. And that's the quote that I read you before, and I'm going to read it again. Unfortunately, we don't have an inventory of CPC positions in each community, but I can report that I have never heard of a town devoting a slot on the CPC to the Veterans Commission. There may be 1 or 2, but it wouldn't surprise me if no one has ever done it. It further takes CPA away from its goal, which is to have all 4 at-large slots be from the general community. You already have 5 town boards represented on your CPC. The at-large slots are supposed to be the chance for general town citizens to get input into CPA. In our view, taking away an at-large slot further concentrates the power in the hands of town government and not the community at large. Following discussion of CPC's letter, Finance Committee voted to not support this warrant article, and the Select Board, during their subsequent meeting on 10/5/21, voted to pass it over at the upcoming town meeting. During the same Select Board meeting, which CPC was again not invited to or made aware that this matter would be discussed, Select Board chose not to read the Select Board's letter outlining the basis for our position, instead chose to paraphrase our position using verbiage and visible cues that left anyone that was uninformed watching with a distinct impression CPC was just being difficult. I'm almost done, Richard.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to say who's next. just so
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
up to-
all right?
it's up to the chairman.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Imagine that.
jump forward to March of 2022, present day. CPC again became aware of a Select Board agenda item to discuss a CPC membership bylaw amendment as it was listed. Again, no communication or request for CPC input was put forth by the Select Board prior to that meeting. CPC members chose to attend this meeting for the sole purpose of determining what was to be discussed. From this meeting and a subsequent review of recordings from 2 prior joint Select Board Affordable Housing Trust meetings that took place in mid-February and early March, it was determined the Select Board had sought out input from Affordable Housing Trust on how they could assist with fulfilling their charge. During the first of these meetings, Select Person Colleen Roy again put forth the idea of replacing an at-large CPC seat, but this time with a member of Affordable Housing Trust. While it was noted there was a discussion of the need to seek out input from CPC by Select Persons Offen and DeFazio, no communication was sent to CPC following that February joint meeting, nor following the subsequent joint meeting held on March 1st. It was only following CPC's attendance at the Select Board's 3/15/22 meeting that a request for CPC input was sent. It was sent on March 17th. Also sent this same day was an email from the town administrator advising that of his opinion, CPC's presence at the meeting was a violation of open meeting law. So that's a little walk down recent history lane.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Okay, first of all, could I get a copy from you to put into record, from Stuart, all these emails that you got from
They
Stuart?
already are, I took them,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Secondly, going back to when Brooke was appointed, and I'm sorry, I'm throwing you underneath the bus.
All right, can I just interrupt you just for a second?
I just want to clarify
Okay,
something.
but I just want to remind everyone that what we're doing here is that the committee is having a discussion regarding CPC membership. all
That's right.
That's the subject.
That's
Okay,
the subject
go ahead.
I'm under.
You've got the floor.
Okay? Because Paul brought it up.
Okay.
I'm just going to clarify it. When you brought up when Brooke was put on, supposedly you said a member, another person got his papers in late. That was me. 100%, and everybody on this board knows that. Okay? I went to Jen Thomas, which was the chairman at the time, and I stopped her as she was jogging by my house or walking by my house with her girlfriend, and my daughter was there. And I asked her, is there any way that I could get an interview before or at your meeting or after the meeting of the select board? And she said to me, if 2 members come to the board or or any member from the select board would like me to have you interviewed, no problem. She turned around and Peter Carlson and Ed Prisby asked to hold off for a week. Brooke was on Zoom that night, upstairs in his office, and he jumped up and down, okay, having a little tantrum, saying if it was Mr. Whitney on the other end, would he do that for me? And I wrote you a nice email the next morning, and I told him, congratulations, I'll see you next time around on the board. I dropped everything like that. And then this comes up again. I saw the thing that was out there. Justin, my son-in-law, right here, okay, said, Pop, there's an opening on CPC. You gonna go for it again? And I says, yeah. Is it still open? He says, yes. I typed my fingers as fast as I could to get my little request in, okay? I got the interview. I did lousy on the interview, and I'll be the first one to admit it, because when I talk out publicly, I'm not that great unless it's a small group of people that I know and I consider friends, okay?
Yep.
So for me to do that, okay, is one thing. And for me to be the person, always come lately, everybody says, well, I didn't come lately. It wasn't my...
I'm not going to get into
wait a
it.
minute.
No.
No,
You
yes, we are,
Suspend.
because I'm-
Suspend.
I'm finishing.
Suspend. We are not going to get into a he said, she said. No.
That's
listen.
not where I'm going.
No, I'm asking you to listen to me. We're not going to get into a he said, she said about anyone else, all right? What this discussion is a discussion regarding CPC membership.
That's
You've
right.
still got the floor.
And what I'm trying to get to, it doesn't matter who's on this board. This is a board of 9 people, not 1, 2, 3, 4. Granted, there's 4 of us at large. And any one of us of the 9 could walk outside in today's society. We could get shot, stabbed, run over by a bus, have a major heart attack or anything. And you all know I had a heart attack at the town meeting, right?
I do.
And I could have died. So I couldn't have been on the board, right? But any of us can be. But the thing is,
One of the requirements, yeah.
one of the requirements, we gotta be 90%
You
dead.
got to be alive, yeah.
Right. But my thing is, and if what I've done and I've looked at, and this is my own opinion, everybody's covered. The 4 major players at large is you, Paul, Ken, Brooke, and I. These are our at large, not the 5.
Okay.
Okay, that are permanent, okay, until whenever, if they get off the boards or not. It's the 4 of us, okay? And that's what we're talking about. And yes, probably every one of us are afraid to get off, okay, or be moved aside because we're comfortable in what we're doing, okay? I'm comfortable now in this, and that's why I ask a lot of questions, but Big Daddy here keeps pushing me aside to make sure I stay in
I
line.
never push you aside, I just keep you ordered.
That's right. But the thing is,
You're
wait
next.
a minute.
You're next.
I had my hand raised before.
No, but it's,
No,
but
but you've
wait a
already
minute.
I want to say, I've gotten text messages from your other members. They can't hear when you talk over one another.
Okay.
So we
But
gotta
let
be
me,
really
let
good
me
about
finish.
that.
I'll be done in a minute. I don't understand, and you can tell me this, I don't understand why it has to be 4 of us. Why can't it be 3 of us? Or why can't it be none of us. They could turn around and say, okay, we're not gonna have people at large, even though it's in the bylaws. They can change the bylaws, and they can make it 3 or 2, okay? So, I mean, either way, it works one way or the other. The puzzle is not hard. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
Okay.
You know, if tomorrow morning they change the rules and I'm voted out, guess what? I go on to another group, try to. That's what I'm saying. It's, you know, it's like any other job. You know, if I went to work, let me just use this example. I went to work for Brooke, and he said at the end of the day, I can't pay you no more. You gotta go find another job. And I was volunteering, and he can't pay me, you know?
Okay.
That's the way it is.
All right, we're not, another step be individual. Thank you very much.
All
Brooke,
right,
you're next.
And just read, I don't think it's about you. I think Paul was trying to make a point about how the committee's been treated and how the select board, or some members of the select board, seem to have an issue with this board. I'm not 100% sure why. I think that's the point he was trying to make, and he was going through various things that has happened. I think the main thing for this particular CPC makeup, and I'm going to go back to what I was harping on earlier about having it become an avenue for other budgets, you need to have community participation. The more you boil it down that it's only people on boards or elected officials, the less chance you're going to have someone, even if I'm a pain in the ass, who's going to say, hey, this is not the way it was. Now, you can vote me out, you know, vote against me when I make the argument. But if you don't have anybody who was there, you don't have anybody at large, if you're not going to have that voice. And I think that's what, is that guy that you said, is he the same Stewart guy?
Yes.
Okay, the executive director is saying, you got to have some community at large. So to me, to take out a community at large person is a mistake. You want more community at large, you know. I think there's a misperception that if you're not on this board, you don't get funding somehow, or you're not aware of funding. I think one of the other points Paul was making is if affordable housing wanted a seat at the table, they'd have plenty of times to get a seat at the table. They had a chance to get someone appointed as an at-large member. They don't come. Now all of a sudden it's imperative that they're sitting at the table. If I can see if they were here all the time, if they're, you know, not getting responses from people, if they tried to get on 5 times, if people were pushing them away, it's not. In fact, from the, you know, we all sat here, the board didn't even put them on the first time. They were going for a veterans agent. So that's why I think Paul's point was, it looks as though, and I even said this the last time I was at the selectmen's meeting, there's maybe a paranoia of this committee that they're picking people off for some other reason other than to make the committee better. And when the legislation says it's housing authority, it probably should be, housing authority.
It's, the Mass General Law is Housing Authority,
It's
and has
1,000,
been
right,
since the.
and that's in the Mass General Laws. Maybe it should be affordable housing. But that's not what they wrote. They wrote housing authority. So, I mean, frankly, I don't care if there's a housing authority person on here, but I don't want to lose 4 at-large members. And if it's set up that you have to lose an at-large member, then I wouldn't be for it, you know?
Okay.
Take off the housing authority guy and put on, and if that were the case, I have to say, just follow down Paul's rabbit hole. If the choice was to switch out Jim for affordable housing, we wouldn't be here. We would not be here because they would, there's something else going on in this whole nonsense. And, you know, and I think that's what Paul was trying to get at. He wasn't trying to get at you. But in the end of the day, I think we need, and precisely for these reasons, we need more at-large members, not less, that are under the auspices or being put on here by the Board of Selectmen or, you know, other committees.
Okay, thank you. No, wait a minute. I want to make sure there are other members, if you have any comments that you'd like to make. And again, the issue is a discussion regarding CPC membership. Does anyone else wish to be heard? John?
I think all of you have made a lot of good points. My biggest concern is that we have never been included in these discussions, and it's about us. And I wish that we could have discussions with the selectmen and the Affordable Housing Trust and be a part of this and try to come up with a solution that satisfies everybody as best as possible. And I think I'm not going to get to all the points that everybody's made, but I think that if we're not included in the discussion, it makes it real difficult for us as a committee to understand why all this is. And so we don't have the opportunity to ask those questions in a separate meeting. This is not the time to be doing this at our meeting that we're trying to prepare for town meeting. And this needs to be an entire meeting to discuss this amongst ourselves with nothing else, or once we've had this discussion, then meet with the selectmen and meet with affordable housing. And we've always supported affordable housing. We've always given them whatever they've asked. We've been proactive. We've given them the annual 10% before they ask for it so that they could spend it. We've, like Paul said, pointed out that the CPA funds could be used for rental assistance. So, and if there's not communication, a better communication between the committee, it's because they're not approaching us. And I think maybe that's, I'll own me not approaching them. I mean, I think that's I will own that I haven't attended their meetings, or I haven't asked them regularly, what is it that you need, or what would you like? How can we help you? And I think that's, if nothing else, I've learned that from this, that I need to be more outgoing with the Affordable Housing Trust organizations. But it seems like everybody finds us that needs funding. The Historical Society in the past has found us. Other groups have found us. The Apple Tree Arts has found us. So we're obviously doing a good job. I haven't heard complaints about our projects, and that's the other question that I don't understand is one of the things people say is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It certainly can be improved. We certainly can do a better job, but I'm not sure what it is that we've done that's so wrong. That
Time's up.
People aren't happy. And I would love to have a meeting where we could talk about that. This is not the meeting to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Given the fact that we are approaching 3 hours here and we still have a considerable ways to go, what I am going to do is I'm going to first remind everybody in this room and anyone who's listening, we are all multiple member citizen groups. The only professional in this room is Evan, all right? And Joanne. Oh boy, was that close. But listen, don't beat ourselves up. Don't beat each other up, because there's no future in it. Trust me, I've been around a long time, and we need to first respect what we do, what we all do, and then what the entire community can do. Now, only because the names have been brought up, and this is just to be a discussion with the CPC, but I will allow time for the two selectmen members if they want to be heard on this because their names have been mentioned.
Mr. Chairman,
Can you come up by the microphone, please?
Mr. Chairman, if it behooves you, if you want to get more opinions from the rest of your committee, I would be willing to wait a few extra minutes before I make any remarks.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Carlson. I'm currently the chair of the Grafton Select Board. I would like...
I'm sorry.
Sure,
John, can you hear him?
I'm doing my best.
I wonder
Can we?
if you sat next to Brooke. Do you mind? I'm sorry, I think it might be better.
Yeah, don't get comfortable, huh?
You'll be what?
I was going to say we're very
Handsy?
fussy about who we let
How
up
could
here,
you
but
not
we
be?
let Brooke, so go ahead.
How could you not be?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this indulgence. My name is Peter Carlson, chairman of the Grafton Select Board. I would like to walk you through about how the Select Board for this process was very deliberate in the way that it went about this before this option and idea came in front of the Affordable Housing Trust. Yes, the Grafton Select Board over the past several weeks has had several discussions, some of which with the Affordable Housing Trust, which this was the genesis of this idea about looking at, well, how else can we assist you? And they considered, like, how do you feel about Affordable Housing Trust having a standing member on the CPC? Upon which, when we have discussed this further, we said, look, let's not do what we did last time. Let's make sure we communicate this. But before we communicate this, let's make sure we're all in agreement from the board that we want to pass this along. So it's not just one person trying to drive the bus. It was all of us. Your meeting last Tuesday, in my opinion, was unfortunate, okay? And I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but given the circumstances, that was the last meeting that the select board had an opportunity to provide additional input or opinion or opine about this idea before the idea was to be sent to you before your next meeting. So I wanted to just be very clear that the board had a deliberate process, and we discussed this. The board has discussed it with me, saying, hey, when we're ready, please, reach out to CPC. I says I can go in person, or I can settle, whatever it was. I was out last week, and I apologize. Evan sent the email in my stay when I was unavailable to do so. So I just want to make sure that you all know that, yes, this is the beginning of the discussions, and what we're asking here for tonight from your committee is just say, do you support the idea of having some direct membership of affordable housing? And if so, the only area that we can go to is at a member at large. We know we can't touch the other 5 members, because when we read the law, I think I even made the mistake saying, oh, well, what about your position, Jim? And I was corrected, I think, like 10 minutes later by Evan, that we couldn't do that. So it came down to this. The other part about what the select board is truly suggesting is not for us to change the bylaw, because we don't. We propose the idea. Town meeting decides. The community decides. If the community decides that it would like to move forward with this one way or the other, okay, then that's the direction and the path we take. So I just wanted to be very clear just on the process. In addition to what we're asking you as to opinion on this matter, we want to take your testimony here tonight, and we will have future discussions within the select board. And if we feel, okay, that having a joint meeting would be fruitful, I will reach out to the chair of CPC, and I will make sure that we set up that meeting and that appointment.
That'd be great.
That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you
Can I
very
ask
much.
one point of clarification while you're there, Peter?
All right.
Is that all right?
Shortly.
So, thank you for the clarification about the process that you were going through this past, I guess it was February and March, and that you had the plan to come to us. And I do know, and I spoke to it, that select people, Offen and DeFazio, both made that point. And I watched in the tape. So I'm not doubting that that was what you guys intended, and it was unfortunate. What I would like you to weigh in on, though, is the other 2 situations where, even just going back to the episode in prior to the last town meeting, where you were looking to change the bylaws, again, without our input. Do you acknowledge that you were proceeding with that without our input?
Well, I think if I may, Colleen, I want to just state the fact here that we had a discussion at the select board level about that last process, and we agreed that that process needed to be better. So the process in which myself had prescribed for the select board to go through this time was to give the board its time for its discussion to make sure, is this really still the good idea? So what had happened in the past, I'm not going to opinion on the facts or what took place, and then, finance committee, and then, passing over the article. I look at it this way. Nothing happened other than, we learned our lesson about, hey, if we're going to propose a bylaw change or some structural change to a standing board or committee, that it behooves us to bring them in and to have discussions. Only which time, once we have that discussion amongst ourselves, so we can formulate our own process and our opinion and how we got to that, and not kind of do it, and I'm going to kind of use the word kind of like half-baked.
Yeah. So you acknowledge that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Do you also acknowledge that back in last June for the reappointment process, that was done without input from any of the committees?
Okay, why does it matter? It's
Because it's
yesterday's.
pertinent to what's happening here.
Okay, but it's yesterday's news. What's
It's
happening?
not, it's today's news. What
No.
are you talking about?
Okay, wait a while.
Mr. Scarlett, if
Wait a
I
while.
may, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
just a minute. We get nowhere when we yell at each other and we
You
complain about.
started it. You did. I'll be quiet.
Thank you. We need to learn to listen to one another. I think a lot has been heard today that opens up some ears to the point that there has to be more communication with more people. And I think that we've made a very uncomfortable movement down this rocky road to come to that conclusion. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to leave this with, well, you said this, did this what you mean, and things like that. So go ahead.
I just wanted to get those facts out, and I think it is definitely pertinent to how we got here. And we're all on board with the need to enhance the relationship with Affordable Housing Trust. I hate to speak for everyone here, but I have a feeling we're all supportive of that. How we get to it is where I think we have to hash things out.
Okay. If I may address that last part there. Again, I'm not disputing any facts or what occurred historically there in the past. As for speaking at the board's intention, I will never do that. I will never speak on behalf of my boards or what their intentions were personally. I think that's something that you yourself have to ask each member. I look at it this way, and this is me speaking personally, and I don't represent the board's opinion on this. When it comes to committee assignments and positions, it's a big responsibility for the select board to go through this. And the select board had its own discussion because it's our process. Just like you are vetting your projects is your process. Okay? You define how you're going to do that. Each committee has its own process in which it goes through. Ours is a governing body that appoints at-large members to multi-member body committees, per the charter, per the bylaws, or per any town meeting act, or any ad hoc committee that we put together. So is there any ill intention or anything that I'm getting the sense from you, Mr. Scarlett, that there was something that was nefarious or something that, no. It was our opportunity to say, we don't know most of these people. Do they align with the board's views and values of the board? And as an executive board of any organization, it is within their purview to make those determinations and how it wants to go about its appointment process. Just like it's within your all's purview to how you vet and evaluate those projects. And that is all I really have to say on that. But if you want to get the opinions from other members, I suggest you talk to them individually.
Okay, that'll be my determination. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Because
Thank you, Peter.
Colleen was also mentioned, I'd give you an opportunity if you wanted to have anything to say.
Does anybody specifically want to ask me anything?
Probably not, but we want to make sure that you're not shut out.
I appreciate that. I mean,
Come on up, just remember who was sitting there before you.
John, is it better when she sits at the microphone?
well, I'm here now, so I hope it is.
Yes.
It is.
Okay. So just to speak to what's happening currently and the Affordable Housing Trust membership that we're discussing, you said that I brought it up, but what you're missing is the Affordable Housing Trust met a week before just themselves, and they discussed it amongst themselves, which is what generated the PowerPoint you saw in the select board meeting. And I made that on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust so that we all stayed on topic that night. We didn't want to get lost or in the weeds or anything like that. So what appeared to you as something that I created, it really wasn't. And as somebody who should be really invested in the Affordable Housing Trust, it would have been really good for you guys to maybe watch their meetings and know that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. And what, no more here. Because Bruce was also mentioned in the Affordable Housing Trust, I'm going to have him come up here. And so that the other guys over there can hear you.
All right.
And while he's
He's got a
coming,
whole bunch more questions for me anyways.
okay. While he's coming up
Well, he's
here, I
gonna
just
meet
want
with
to
Chris
point out
McGoldrick.
that I have been.
Well, I tell you, I watched that meeting and none of them knew what they were talking about, so, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just being in charge. I have been at Affordable Housing Trust meetings, and I'm sorry because of the remarks that were made before. I do remember other trips that Bruce has made here before we got a new rug or anything like that. So again, we're all on the same team here, that we all have Gs on our hat.
Well, I spent 4.5 years with you guys here. I have as much time on the CPC as I do on the trust. So, I have some familiarity with the process and the way it works. My point now is we did spend some time on how we can advance projects from the trust's behalf, build around a cohesive set of boards and committees like the select board. So we came up with it, we brought it to the select board and said, here's some of the things that we think would help the trust. Now, in the past, everybody alludes to the fact that, we haven't spent that money, we haven't done anything. What we're doing now is spending the money in developing projects. We're also coming up with ideas, we're finding our own grants and things of that nature. It would behoove us at this time to make sure as we develop those programs, which we need to be sustainable, that we have some representation on this committee. The Housing Authority, you're here in support of it. I've read the bylaws, I've also read the general laws. In some communities, housing authorities actually participate in the construction of those particular housing units, and therefore can, work with the maintenance and with their GHA membership. But as you know, when we approached and we looked at it, when we talked to HUD to try to get some affinity for some partnerships with some projects, they didn't want to have anything to do
Let me
with that.
just stop you for a second. Bruce came out to a housing authority meeting because we wanted to meet together with the Affordable Housing Trust about how the Grafton Housing Authority could work with the Affordable Housing Trust in coming up with projects. What I had envisioned was building, using the money, building a development or something like that. And then the big thing with CPC is that we can't maintain it. So if we were to build it through the trust, then we could turn it over to the housing authority and the housing authority could maintain it. And that's what we were after when Bruce came out. But what happened is that our executive director got together with the Executive Office of Community and Development, and they had Bruce going and getting a lawyer and going 3 ways from Tuesday to be able to just talk to us. So it was just not fruitful. So
They have no appetite for development out here. So when I talk about continuity and things on the trust, when I'm speaking with the trust, and if you follow some of our meetings, you'll see that we regularly go back to that. We're looking for continuity of service. Some of the things like the rental assistance program and things like that, which we just kind of managed in a way it went, and now it's done. But there are other programs. So in the town, if you were to have, let's say, half of the current apartment units, well, these are things that get monitored every single year. So in your proposal, you almost have 800 units that could potentially come online in the town. Right now, I think you're going to probably get about 500 of those units, which is going to put you out of that 40B, which is probably some of the questions that you would have had before. But in so doing, you have active monitoring of those things. When those units become available, we want to make sure that we have programs in place when Evan goes to hire somebody, which is very difficult to do in this market, that we have some of those things that we can rely on. Say, well, we have housing, we subsidize it. We have the Affordable Housing Trust, they'll do the first, the last, and stuff like that. To provide those services year in, year out, with the changing membership in the particular bodies as they stand now, I felt, and so did the rest of the trust, that we'd be more comfortable with having continued membership. So as people roll off the trust, which is only a 2-year term, and come back on, then in year 6 of a particular program that we rolled out and had some success with, we'd have that continuity of service. It's very important to what we're doing now. And I don't really care about the past. I don't care about fiefdoms. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm on the tail end of all that crap. I want to make sure that as I get off the trust, there is some type of service that gets extended from what we do to the future. Okay? And in 6 or 8 or 10 years, this might all be different. But at the very least, as a new person gets on the trust or a new person gets on the CPC, that role is defined and we can continue on with those programs.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce.
Mr. Chair, could I ask him one question?
Yes.
Just for clarity. Can you, because I didn't quite follow it, how does a seat on CPC create continuity for AHD?
Because it makes us have to cooperate. It makes us have to see what we do. If you have a housing authority member, you're not spending much money on those particular projects, you know, your Snow Road and things of that nature, Zagonis, et cetera. As we're rolling out, 500 units, there's going to be 125 units there that should be actively monitored. I mean, that's part of the role of what Jim's seat would actually do. So I think it would benefit the trust, the town, and all the parties included, that, regardless of the composition of the select board, regardless of the composition of the trust, and regardless of the composition of this committee, you always have a seat there that can speak to a particular program that you're rolling out.
That still doesn't clarify it for me. So if you have an issue with continuity on your committee, that people roll over all the time, and you have a seat on this committee, when those people roll off, then somebody new would assume the seat on this committee.
Yep.
So you would have someone on this committee all the time, but you wouldn't have continuity of
The
the
network is
person
built.
being on.
The network is built. We talked at length at some of your conversations, how, we never talk to each other. And, we should, it's somebody's fault at this or that or the other thing. They never come and ask for us for money. Well, we didn't have anything to ask you money for. We will. And I want to make sure we're prepared for it. And I hear what you're saying. You've been on this committee for, it's like 20 years. We served together on it 15 years ago. Okay? You're still here. That's great. But, that's not necessarily the way it's going to be moving forward. So, if you want to make sure that those channels of communication are always there, you codify them. This is how you codify it. So, you don't have to play the other game where you're worried about people picking off people and doing their own devices and stuff like that. The trust has membership here. So, and we're always there.
Thank you. Justin?
All right, so my point is not to Bruce, so if anyone has something for Bruce, I'll defer, and otherwise we're gonna let Bruce take a seat if he wants.
Thank you.
All right. Now, my thought I had, which came to me after I last had the floor, is if there is a concern by you, Paul, or some members that the select board is operating with an agenda with regard to this committee. The thing to realize is that the select board has within their full purview on who these 4 at-large members are. They get to decide out of anybody in town who they want on those CPC from the 4 at-large.
I spoke at my own peril, yes.
If we allow the Affordable Housing Trust to select for themselves, there is a little bit less, we're having the select board have less autonomy, which the concern was that they have an agenda. I don't agree with them having an agenda, but if that's the concern, doing this actually alleviates that concern. And
I'm sorry.
the last part, I think, unless someone has more to say, I would like to make a motion that the CPC draft a letter to the select board in support of having an Affordable Housing Trust member on the CPC.
Why?
This
Why?
was a discussion item. That's the only thing I
This-
want to
yeah,
point
it's
out.
a
On your
discussion
agenda, it's a
item.
discussion item.
Discussion item.
So I think do you have to do a motion to see if
think it's
people want to
premature.
take a vote?
Yeah. I think, you know what, what I think we've done here very uncomfortably is we've made the CPC, the select board, the town administrator, and the Affordable Housing Trust. Everybody has given remarks about things that have pissed them off and things that happened that they didn't like. So now's the time that we bury that, sit around a campfire, sing Kumbaya, and let's come to a point where if it takes combined meetings, then so be it. Or if it takes, you're thinking, the select board is thinking that they would, we might be better off with a member of the Affordable Housing Trust. When that position is available, maybe the Affordable Housing Trust talks amongst themselves as to who might be a good idea, and then that person appears in front of the selectmen and says that, I've got the blessing of the trust, or something like that. All right? But we got to stop beating each other up. We have to work together. We're a small town. We don't have time to beat each other up, and we need to stop that right now. All right? I'm done. Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right,
You have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor. My understanding is that we can make a motion to draft a letter within the purview of this discussion.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yep.
What's the proposed letter?
That the CPC supports adding an Affordable Housing Trust member to the CPC in lieu of one of the public at-large seats.
Go.
So, I'm not opposed to bringing such a motion forward at a future date. I will point out the fact that it took multiple meetings with the Affordable Housing Trust to come to the conclusion that they wanted to put this motion forward. We've had one opportunity to vent, not really to discuss the merits of what's been doing, but to vent what our issues are. We haven't really had a chance to meet with the overall committee, the Affordable Housing Trust Committee, because that was actually what we were instructed to do by the select board, was to meet with them. So, yeah, we've had a little dialogue with them, we vented, but there's still a lot more to work through before we get to the point of making a vote like you're talking about, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I may just briefly respond. I recognize that. I still think, at least for myself, that I'm comfortable making that letter, and that's why I'm looking for a vote on doing so. If it's
Okay,
if everyone votes no, then we bring it up another time.
Anyone else have a comment beside me?
Sandy does.
Other than I agree with
Sandy
Paul, we should vote
Sandy.
no.
You're on. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just briefly, I feel like I'm sort of like the outsider, even though I've lived in town for 20 years. You know, I'm on the Concom. I do that because of my profession. I feel like grew up in a family where, you know, civic duty and giving back was a big deal. And so I appreciate everyone sitting in this room, because in one way or the other, we're all doing some volunteering because we feel like it's important. At this point, I just don't know all the players well enough. I don't know the history. I don't want to, I just don't feel comfortable making a vote on anything to make any recommendations. For me personally, this is all, I knew things were going on, but this is pretty new to me. So I'm not saying that I would say yay or nay to, you know, changing up the membership of this committee. At this point, I'm just not prepared for it. So I would like to know a little bit more, but I do kind of echo some of what our fearless leader, our chair, was saying. You know, at a certain point, you have to look beyond with what was been happening. You should never forget things, but you should be able to put them into a place that, for mature adults, that we can have difficult conversations without getting too heated, and to come to what's best for the town. I mean, really, I think that's what we're all here for. But on this particular motion by Justin, I just don't know enough, and I would want to have a little bit more information. And that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else beside me? All right, my feeling is that I will vote no, and the reason being is I think the select board are the people who are elected to do things like make assignments. So I'm not gonna vote that I tell them what they should do. I think that they should be able to do that based on the fact that the majority of people in town voted for them and put them in that place. So what they come up with is what we will go by.
In your opinion.
Anyone else? All right, so let's vote. The question is whether or not we send a letter about, what the hell we're talking
I
about?
have a motion to draft a letter to select board in support of adding an Affordable Housing Trust member to CPC in lieu of an at-large member.
Okay. Kristen Belanger.
Nay.
Kristen Belanger, nay. Sandy Brock.
Nay.
Sandy Brock, nay. Jim Gallagher, nay. Ken Holberger.
Nay.
Ken Holberger, nay. Brooke Paget.
Nay.
Brooke Paget, nay. Paul Scarlett.
Nay.
Paul Scarlett, nay. John Stevens.
Nay.
John Stevens, nay. Richard Whitney.
Yes.
Richard Whitney, aye. Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood, aye. The thing is not passed. which is not to say that we don't think that it should be here. It's just, that's your decision, not ours, all right?
That's not what we
That's not
said.
what we
That's
said.
not what we
Vote
said.
was-
It's not what the vote
We
was.
have to discuss it, is
Yeah.
what was said.
Yeah.
The explicit
You
was
just said
in
give it-
favor
Right.
of, not in not favor. It doesn't negate that.
Doesn't mean
Chair, can I
anything,
just
writing
explain
a
one thing?
letter.
I just went through an entire litany of reasons why we wanted input, to be able to provide input. What you're saying is that they don't need to come to us for any input, that they can just do
No,
it because
no,
they were
that's not
voted.
what I'm saying
Well, that's
at
what
all.
it sounded like you were saying
No,
to me.
well, it wasn't. Don't listen to me now. All right? So we're good, right? No.
We're okay for right now, but I think
Okay. All right.
it's got to be revisited.
Jim, do you want to meet with the trust again?
Yes,
Want me to schedule something?
yes, but I'd like to, and I really would not like to set a date right now. I have to be in my kitchen next to the refrigerator where the calendar is. So we'll get in touch. Or someone else, or there can be more than one, right?
Of course, in the spirit of what all you were saying.
Yep, kumbaya.
You're going to be reaching out to me soon.
Okay. Item 12, Town Administrator Evan Broussard's email.
So, you want me to speak to that? or you-
Well, do you want to come back up, seeing that your name's in this?
Yeah, I'll just, so,
Can you sit over here, please, so that they can hear you better there?
they're saying, if you're at that mic. Okay.
so Evan rightly,
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
noticed that there was a quorum of members of this committee present at the Select Board Committee. I will say that was not our intent, and your letter assumed that that was. It definitely was not our intent. In fact, we went to great efforts, or thought we went to great efforts to avoid it. We knew 4 members were going to be there, which wouldn't have represented a quorum. What we didn't know was that Richard was going to be there.
Right.
And he was, and we should have recognized that, and for that, I do apologize. But I will say that the only reason that CPC was in attendance at that meeting was to determine what was being considered. Richard Whitney, who was there, like I said, had actually been present, and he brought this up and apologized for it, but had been present at a prior meeting, one of those joint sessions with AHT where this was brought up, but he did not bring it to the attention of this committee, so we were unaware of it. When questioned by the Select Board if we were there to discuss CPC membership bylaw amendment agenda item, members present advised they did not know what this agenda item was in reference to and were there to find out. We were advised of the prior joint meetings with Affordable Housing Trust and that they were seeking to amend the bylaws to support a standing Affordable Housing Trust member in lieu of one of our existing at-large positions. The acting Select Board Chair and other Select Board members offered their thoughts and posed some questions of the CPC members present. The discussion was limited to this sole agenda item, and no voting or discussion of any other CPC business took place. CPC members were left with a request to discuss this matter at our next CPC meeting, which we have been doing, and to get back to the Select Board with the committee's thoughts on the matter. So then, on 2 days after that, we got a letter from Evan. It was sent to our chair, John Stevens, and myself, and Candy LaValle was CC'd.
Sorry, your door was locked. We're on a open meeting lock.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, that's why we've been
Thank you for
keeping it a
being
little
vigilant.
ajar.
Why
I
don't I
think,
keep it ajar so we're not...
well, when you left, you shut it, but yeah.
So the email, I attached it here before. I think it was sent out to all of you, so you've all had a chance to see the email. In it, he indicated it was his belief that CPC was in violation of open meeting law by virtue of having a quorum present, having not posted the meeting, and having 4 members share opinions on the matters within their jurisdiction. And he encouraged self-reporting of this matter to the Massachusetts Attorney General as the best course of action. So I do want to point out, because his points were really directed at what this one exception is to open meeting law, which allows for a quorum of one committee to attend another committee's meeting without it being posted. And it reads, members of a public body may attend a meeting of another public body, provided that they communicate only by open participation. However, they may not deliberate at such gatherings. So, in his letter to us, Evan was indicating that we did deliberate. So what I am saying is that the determination of whether a violation occurred in this situation boils down to the interpretation of whether or not deliberation in fact occurred or not. I would suggest that since CPC members' presence was solely to obtain clarity around a select board agenda item impacting CPC that had not been communicated to them, representing a repeat pattern of behavior by the select board, and as CPC member participation was limited to open participation with a discussion of CPC matters limited to addressing questions posed to them by the select board on this sole matter with no resulting votes or decisions being made. Because of that, in my opinion, I don't think deliberation occurred. That's all I have to say.
Me? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just to be clear, I don't think there was any intent, and I think I tried to express that in my letter. The definition of deliberation is that you express an opinion on matters within the jurisdiction of the body within, or in the presence of a quorum. That's all it does. Even if no other member responds, and I just want to, I kept this open because I can never remember jurisdiction. As a general rule, any matter of public business on which a quorum of the public body may make a decision or recommendation is considered a matter of jurisdiction of the public body. So, in general, you were discussing Affordable Housing Trust, funding came up, as well as seats at the table. I just think as a matter of best practice, we would self-report that. And, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. I just find that, you know, that was a very public conversation. And I think that the optics of it are great. And I just think that we should be above board with it, so.
Brooke?
A couple things. I don't think we deliberate, what you just, we were speaking to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, exemption 3, to me, doesn't read the way, I mean, Paul read it. And of course, I can't pull it up here either. I don't see any part where we were deliberating amongst ourselves. We certainly were talking to the board.
Did you share any opinion that was your own on matters within the jurisdiction of the committee?
To Paul?
To anybody. Paul's on your committee. And you, in the room, there's 5 members of you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you share an opinion about anything within the jurisdiction of the committee?
We shared with the Board of Selectmen. We didn't sit, we didn't caucus, we didn't talk to one another.
That's not what
we didn't make-
deliberation means, though.
Well, we will beg to differ.
Okay.
And I do know at the OLM, the Attorney General's office, I mean, what I'm gonna ask is for us not to apologize. I didn't like that you apologized. I didn't like that, Paul, you just apologized. I would like you to make that complaint, because I would like to get a ruling on that, because from my talk at the Attorney General's office, they rolled their eyes and said, please do not let him make that complaint.
Who'd you talk to at the
I'm not
Attorney
gonna
General's
tell you who I
office?
talked to.
Well, that's.
Why does that matter?
So here's the deal.
Okay.
I'll file it in the morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
We'll let them.
That's what I prefer.
No, we're still under, okay, yes, wait.
I gotta drive an hour home,
Okay, thank you.
to be quite honest with you. Like,
Thank
I got
you.
stuff to do.
Ron
Richard?
has a question.
I just wanted to say one thing, okay? I've been to all the select board meetings since February, because I'm running for select board. And you all know that. So I've been to every meeting that I can get my hands on, okay, besides being here, okay? But that night, I was surprised when I saw the 4 of yous walk in, okay? I didn't know you guys were coming, and I was there. Nobody, unfortunately, if we're supposed to be a committee, and 4 of you are going out to this meeting, you know, do you contact everybody else? But the 4 of yous didn't contact anybody else.
Because you can't, because of open meeting law.
Okay, but, no, I'm just saying.
No,
I got the
Richard
floor.
now. Go ahead.
And I'm right, because Paul brought up my name, and said, I was there, I made the 5th. Well, the 4 of yous got together and said, let's go.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Well, something happened, and if we're gonna be a committee here, and just the 4 of yous are going to go to the meeting, it's funny to me that all 4 of yous walk in at the same time, and
No,
you
we
had
didn't
to
walk
be
in at the
talking.
same time
Didn't,
either.
we all walked in at
Or
separate times.
you're on the phone, chatting back and forth or whatever, and you left the other members out. Justin didn't get to go. Christie, she didn't get to go. John didn't, nobody else.
Listen, I
I'm
don't
just
think
saying,
it-
so
I'm
we're
gonna finish
all
this
gonna
'cause I
get.
wanna go home too.
Listen,
yes.
I wanna go home
Okay.
too, but I'm not getting, excuse the language, up the river without a paddle, okay, for anybody, because I was sitting there and you guys
Just blaming
decided.
you. I was
No,
pointing
you're an
out that
innocent
that's what
bystander.
happened. Yeah.
You're an
We
innocent-
didn't do, first of all.
Okay.
I don't
No,
think we
no,
did
we're not
anything
going to
wrong.
keep saying the same thing. It's like, doing the same thing again and again and again, thinking the results are going to change. Right, I know. No, wait, John.
I guess I don't understand the ramifications of us self-reporting. To me, if we didn't do anything wrong, if this was strictly an accident, which I believe that it was, and it seems like that's what Evan said, he believed it was an accident or unintentional. Turn in the paperwork, and then they say, don't do it again, or count your noses before you go into another meeting. Let them deal with it. Let us we've got other fish that we need to fry. I don't know if people agree with that, if that's good, bad. We need to just move on, do it.
You guys gotta show some accountability.
That would be the easiest thing.
That's right. The fact,
Facts and let them decide.
okay, I have already said at the very beginning, and then this is when it's going to stop. I have said at the beginning that I have every intention of taking this. I was the senior member there, and no, there's not going to be any other comment.
I'm sorry, Jim, I had my hand up the whole time. You will recognize me tonight. Thank you.
All right, go ahead now.
So,
No kiss goodnight for you.
So I read Evan's email. I watched the meeting. This was, to me, a very clear violation of open meeting law. I have gone to the point of drafting a response to the Attorney General on behalf of this committee, and I would like to make a motion that the committee authorizes me to sign it. I will share this right now. If the committee wants to act on my motion without even reading this to say no, go right ahead.
So moved.
I'm sorry, who did you,
I would like to hear it, so,
Oh, all right.
did a response to who?
the Attorney General's
The
office.
Attorney General's office. So, that's their first page, which is just instructions. Oops, I'm on the wrong tab. Contact information, basic, that's mine. Grafton, Mass, CPC. On behalf of the organization, public body, the subject of the complaint, Community Preservation Committee, Grafton, Mass, the 5 members who were present in the meeting, and the date of the violation.
Sandy has her hand up.
The description of it as I wrote. The select board had an agenda item to discuss CPC membership, expecting the CPC to have received a letter describing what was going on. While the CPC never received said letter, 5 members of the CPC attended the select board meeting, which constitutes a quorum. Once the CPC relevant agenda item came up, the select board's vice chair, acting chair for this meeting, Colleen Roy, multiple times during discussion called out the fact that the CPC members should not speak on the subject due to their quorum and no meeting having been posted. This comment did not deter members from speaking repeatedly. First CPC member to speak was James, followed by Paul, Brooke, and Richard. It should be noted that Richard is running for select board and has been regularly attending select board meetings for weeks and did not just arrive for the single agenda item as the other CPC members had done. For reference, the select board meeting is available for viewing on YouTube. I gave the link to the actual meeting. And the CPC portion starts at timestamp 1 hour, 40 minutes, and 53 seconds. What action do you want the public body to take in response to your complaint? As a committee filing this notice, we publicly recognize the error in our members' actions and wish to have input from the AG's office on if any further action is necessary. We, as a committee, additionally will forward a copy of this complaint and any AG response to the participating members' entire appointing bodies. So in that case, this would be the select board as well as the housing authority. And it has a spot for me to sign. I did print out a copy right here that I'll sign on the spot if I'm given the authority to do so. And I will additionally just add, if the committee does not wish to have me file this on behalf of the committee, I will be filing one on my own as an individual.
Okay, motion made, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, any discussion?
I have one thing.
No, I'm gonna let Sandy go first,
Okay,
and I think John's had his hand up before.
that's fine.
Sandy?
Sure, and again, it's just, I am not going to vote for anything that I haven't had the time, not just to read the letter, but also to, as someone who's a professional engineer, I have checked with our ethics board. I understand the process. I also understand, being the chair of Concom, that we're very aware of this. I would want to do my own research. I wasn't at that meeting. I wasn't invited. I didn't know about it. I'm not going to say this is what we should do at this point, because to be quite honest, there's a lot of undercurrent here that I don't fully understand, and I'm not going to sign anything or vote to sign anything or vote to authorize anything without having more knowledge of what happened. I have not watched that selectmen's meeting. Yeah, it's just for me to do it in a setting like this, and even though it was on the agenda, and I'm not prepared to vote for anything like that. I just don't feel I've been been prepared enough to do that. I don't think we should do something like this lightly, but I do think we should follow up on it based on what happened that night and what I've heard so far tonight. But I think we need to do it a little bit more intentionally and a little bit more well thought out, and to do it as a committee, as a whole, and have that opportunity for everyone to look at that, as whether if Justin wants to submit his own letter, that's your right, got no problem with that. I just don't feel comfortable at this point. I just don't know enough. That's it.
Thank you. John?
A question and a comment. The question, I guess, would be to you, Jim, because you were there. And in the complaint, it said that Colleen Roy pointed out several times that there was a quorum of CPC. And I just want to know, is that factual?
Colleen's nodding her head, but I'll be honest with you, is that, everybody was talking.
I don't recall if the term quorum was
Is
used.
Colleen still there?
Yeah, Colleen's here, and if she's saying that she had said it, had I heard you say that, I think I would have just gotten up and left.
Yeah,
But-
I said it. I said I used the word quorum, but it
So-
didn't
Yeah.
seem to deter.
I'm good
anyone.
I don't
with that.
doubt it.
Then
I don't doubt
The only
it.
other thing, I will support this, Justin, in fairness, and I'm voting for Richard, and I'll say it now. So it's not that I'm out against him, but that you need to state in there for full disclosure that Richard, when you're supporting him here, kind of as an innocent party, that he is your father-in-law. I think that's only fair to put that in.
Right.
And then I will vote for this.
I will make that edit on a separate form right now so I can.
Okay, is
I
there
requ-
any other discussion?
I have another edit suggestion. I don't know the exact wording, but nowhere in here does it talk to intent. And there was no intent on anyone's part to have a quorum present to have led to this situation. So I'd appreciate it if that wording could somehow be incorporated in,
All right,
if you were going to file that on your own.
Yeah, I'm not going to
Does it
sign this letter. I never heard Colleen say quorum. And
Yeah.
I don't think we have done anything wrong.
Okay.
That being said, municipal government is always, in my mind, the missed opportunity, right? And this committee has become such a paranoid place that the board is for Evan to spend time. I mean, I guess I was just more irritated that he would spend time to send this committee a letter saying, if you don't write an apology publicly, I'm going to file a complaint. I mean, we got enough to do without him spending his time taking 4 people who showed up at a meeting to ask a question about their board.
Okay.
But that's what hold on, Jim. And why this committee has become a cluster. Every time we come in here, it's a yelling match about listen, it was a good committee for a while. Something happened. And you know, I don't know what it is, but something happened. And for the town administrator, again, it was a threat. I mean, I don't consider it a threat the way Ms. Roy thinks she gets a threat when someone says to go to ethics. In my mind, he should go and file it, because I'd like to know. I'd like to know if 4 people show up and ask a question, if that's deliberation. The Attorney General's office, to me, says it's not. He, again, I'm astonished he gets up and runs out of the room because somebody said, I don't think that's the right answer. Well, I'm going to file it then. Seemed a little over the top to me. I don't dislike him, but come on.
Okay, thank you. And I will add in, first off, is just that, you know, the way that he was treated by this board the last time that we met with his proposal, I would have had a little hair across my ass as well. Having said that...
Hold on. No, Jim, you cannot just throw crap out and then walk away.
I can, because in the last meeting we had here, he was berated.
No, he wasn't. He was not.
home,
He
and
came to a meeting and we
guys are good.
disagreed with what he was doing. That's what we're about.
Okay, fine.
If it was just the
All right,
rubber
that was a lot
stamp
of
stuff,
comment,
I mean, it's...
But here's what I will say.
And we voted for the thing overall after he changed it.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
But
Praise God.
he proposed it wrong. He made his application incorrectly.
Okay.
That's not our fault.
Nope, right, you're right. What I would like to say is first of all, I do not support a letter written by someone, no offense, but someone who was not there. Secondly, is that I cannot support a letter where the entire body was brought in on it. I would prefer, I have spent hours doing a letter, and I didn't know that there was even a friggin' form. But I've spent hours doing a letter as to what we were doing there, why we were doing it there, and accepting full responsibility, which I have no problem doing, and put an end to this. That's what I'd like to do. So that's the motion on the floor. We'll take a vote.
Wait, I'm sorry, which motion? His motion?
His motion.
Okay, thank you. I thought I was
Okay.
getting sleepy.
Before we vote, Jim, just one
Yes.
minor thing. To your point, Paul, about intent in this, I do not feel comfortable putting down information about intent because that is not something that I have actual knowledge of, and I do not feel comfortable writing that in here.
But you're proposing
Yeah.
that it be a letter by the committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
If there's a specific wording you want in here, you know, let me hear
just
it. and I'll-
vote.
Let
Just
me
vote
do
on
it.
it. Just
Just
vote.
let me do it.
Just vote.
Let me do it. All right.
Jim, not on behalf of the committee. I'm not voting for you to sign one.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it on your own. Justin can do it on his own. Anyone else can do it on their own.
The motion is on
You didn't
behalf
do
of the
anything
committee.
wrong.
Kristen-
I'm not going to say I did.
Oh, yes, Ken.
I think the same issue is ridiculous, and I think that the committee should do nothing.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
No, that was.
Actually, that is a motion. I'm going to second that motion.
That's not a motion.
All right, can't, well, you already
vote
have
on
a
that one.
motion on the
The
floor.
floor's already been seconded.
Okay, Kristen,
My hand hurts.
Nay.
Kristen is nay. Sandy Brock.
Nay.
Sandy Brock is nay. Jim Gallagher is nay. Ken Holberger.
Nay.
Ken Holberger is nay. Brooke Paget.
Nay.
Brooke Paget is nay. Paul Scarlett.
Nay.
Paul Scarlett is nay. John Stevens.
More waste of
Just
time.
for clarification, because I can't really hear, because when everybody talks, I can't hear. Is the motion for you to send a letter?
No,
or
this is for Justin's.
Justin to send a letter?
For me to sign this complaint to the AG's office and open meeting law office on behalf of the CPC. The one that I have on the screen, on behalf of the CPC, John.
But it's the letter that you, yeah, gotcha.
The one that's on the screen as it is.
Hey, yes, sorry.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney.
Aye.
Richard Whitney is aye. Justin Wood.
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye. The nays have it, so if you send something, send it on your own, and I'd appreciate it if you don't mention me. Now, see, I don't know if I should mail mine now.
If you
Honest to
think you did
God.
something wrong, go ahead and send
Well,
it.
I feel like I should take responsibility. I was the ranking member.
You didn't do any, let's find out we did something wrong. Let the AGs come and say you did something wrong. Then you can
Sounds like
apologize.
Evan's gonna file. one,
Yeah, he
and
sounds
it
like he's gonna go do it,
file.
so
Let them weigh
let
in
him
on
waive
it.
it.
We'll find out eventually.
That's why they get paid to do that. They have the municipal law.
Copy you can have.
They don't get back to you anyways.
Thank you.
I did one on McInerney and it never came back.
I've had plenty done on me.
See, I don't know what to do now. Okay, thank you. Robinson property.
Oh, I forgot we have more.
Do you realize
They
that
have
this
actual
meeting
business to
is
do.
longer than any meeting that John Stevens ever ran?
You might want to give consideration to passing over project updates.
So moved.
Second.
Just suggesting, sorry.
All those in
Selfish on my
favor?
part.
All right, there's a mo.
Move to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman.
That what?
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn and pass over the items that are left on until the next meeting.
Second.
What's the
Okay,
Robinson
motion
property
made and
one, anyway?
seconded. All right, any discussion? Is there anything that's,
Good idea.
Nothing.
Thank you.
how about the weed
Wait, who
abate?
seconded
Nope,
that?
I
that's,
could use a little of that right
Accountability.
now.
Brooke, I'll see if
Huh?
I can do it.
I'm trying to keep it down.
Order, Mr. Chair, there's no discussion on moving to adjourn.
Five of us go to Cancun's, it's a
Pardon me?
You don't discuss a motion to adjourn, you just,
You know what? I knew that.
I know.
There's two motions
that.
there.
I know you did.
Oh, there was two motions, that's why.
Yeah, because he,
Okay.
he asked to pass over.
Passover, that's right.
That's right.
Passover, he's not even Jewish. All right?
partly.
Okay. Kristen?
Aye.
Kristen is aye. Sandy?
Aye.
Sandy is aye. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Ken Holberger is aye. Brooke Paget?
Aye.
Aye. Paul Scarlett?
Aye.
Is aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens is aye. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
And Justin Wood, or Rich Whitney is aye. Justin Wood?
Aye.
Okay. We will pass over this, and now I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved. Adjourn.
Adjourn.
to
I thought he
adjourn.
was,
I thought it was
I thought he
both. I made
motioned to
two
adjourn and
motions
pass
together.
over in one.
Okay, he made the motion, so let's just do this real quick. Is there a
Right.
second?
Second.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a former
Kristen?
person. So moved.
Sandy?
Aye.
Jim is aye. Ken? Brooke is aye. Brooke?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Justin Wood?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.